Mr. Kevin Douch. Firstly, the pressure of the best guest we've ever had. So have that on your shoulders, and we go again. How are you, pal?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Mate, well, I think that we've already started with a revelation, which is that your surname was pronounced Douch, and I've known you for 15 years, and I'm like, what the fuck?
I did wonder
like
this.
That bit in The Simpsons when Homer's been calling Miss
I guess for the
name.
benefit of listeners, I did message the guys yesterday and I said, just so you know, my surname is pronounced Douch, like couch, not douche, duck, all the other things I had over the years. And it kind of hit me. I was like, I've known James a long time, and I wonder if he even knows how I pronounce it.
No, we call you Douch, mate. What the fuck? How's this? This is mad. This is crazy.
This is perfect. What a great start.
Well, look, great start.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, mate. Firstly, I just wanted to start by saying happy 25th birthday to Big Scary Monsters.
Thanks. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's it snuck up a little bit. I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but I started this when I was 17. And I still think of myself probably as like a 20-something. There's moments where I'm like, fuck, no, I'm 42. I've been doing this for a minute now, and it's really crazy how it's just come forward. And suddenly we're here and we're signing bands now. The most recent band we signed, they're 19 years old, which means the label was pretty well established. We were working with bands like Mimi in St. Louis and TTNG while these bands were being born. And that is a really sobering moment. I can't say I particularly enjoyed it, but
no.
It's happening more and more. So yeah, the 25-year thing has become very, very real to me.
I mean, if it makes you feel any better, even at 42, you're the youngest person on this podcast, so you've got an in your favour. And not to make it about us, but we do like to make it about us. We are celebrating our second birthday as well, James. We had to do that online rather than on a podcast. So, mate, there's
cheers, mate.
A cup of tea. That cheers.
Pint of vodka.
Man, I'm not going to toast it with this, but I just found this in my fridge earlier, and it's a good time to show it. The Arctangent beer from last year. I still have one can of it. I'm not going to drink it now because it's 11 a.m. and I'm not a maniac, but it's I toast you with it anyway.
Yeah,
drink it soon, Kev. They don't like being out of date. Those things.
I did just see the best before date. It was a couple of months ago.
No, that's a wee memento. Get up on a shelf somewhere. Because obviously we're going to be talking to you at length about Big Scary Monsters and the multiple roles you play across the festivals and in the industry. But you mentioned the podcast is the second year. Have you been with us since day one? Did you come in? You knew James before. Tell us a wee bit about the background of that, of knowing James. Knowing he was going to have a podcast, probably like, shit, what the hell's that guy going to say? And then what's come to be?
Yeah, I've listened to every episode. This will be the first and only one I won't listen to. I don't know, James, I know you listen back to every episode. Gav, do you do that as well?
Well, before it goes out.
Yeah.
So just to make sure that we haven't, I really put ourselves. Mostly it's for technical issues, to be honest. The bone answers, and just to make sure the two are actually in sync and talking. But after that, there's a few of them. I mean, I could not listen back to the Music Press ones.
Right.
The guest ones are the ones I find most. I'm quite okay with the ones the two of us get a bit drunk. And it's a bit of fun, and we're just talking about Machine Head. Those are the ones that James can't listen back to because he's a bit like, I was just slurring my head.
Well, no, I've listened from the start, and I think it's great. It was interesting for me because me and James talk fairly regularly, about the festivals, just checking in on things like, I don't know, talking about bands that he could book or asking my opinion on bands, that kind of thing. So to switch from having conversations to just listening to him speak was quite odd at times. I almost wanted to answer the questions myself. I mean, there's been moments where I've been listening to the podcast, then James rings me, and that's a real shift in gears. I think like what you guys do though is great. I was saying this to a friend the other day, actually. I think going all the way back to the ball ache of billing, just in terms of how you've opened people's eyes to all of that, people that never considered it. And more recently with the press stuff, I see it in your Facebook group as well. And I see people sort of now aware of this, and I think that's really cool. I think there's not enough education generally in the music industry, and there's a lot of sort of taboos and things that people don't like to talk about, and I really like that you guys have just sort of opened it up and at times, me and Jen, my wife, talk about this sometimes. She listens as well. And occasionally she'll come to me and be like, do you think James should have said that? And I'm like, I don't know if he should have. Which makes for really good episodes. But yeah, there's been a few moments where I sort of thought, oh, I wonder how many texts he's going to get about that one.
Yeah,
there's been a few texts over the months that we've been going.
James thinks that a lot. Okay, I'm officially enough about us. Tell us about you. Tell us about your background. Introduce us. Tell the world who we're listening to. You, Kev.
All right. So, initially, I'm going to start by this is going to be a bit of a Rob Scarlett answer. It's an ode to Rob because I'm going to waffle for a minute here. What I currently do now, I have a fair few jobs in the music industry, and even James doesn't know all of these, actually. So, and I had to write these down and count them up because there is a few here. First and foremost, I run a record label called Big Scary Monsters, which, as mentioned, is 25 years old now. It's based in Oxford. Well, it's just a small town called Abingdon, just outside of there. And over the years, we've worked with bands like American Football, La Dispute, Lambrini Girls, Modern Baseball, Jamie Lemon, Minus the Bear, Cursive, Caspian, Arcane Roots, Meet Me St. Louis, loads of others, bands that people would have seen across 2000 Trees and Arctangent a lot. 20 years ago, I started a second label with my housemate at the time, which is called Alcopop Records. And that was really, BSM was putting out a lot of kind of math rock and quite, not serious music, but basically I wanted to do some more twee and indie leaning things, which didn't necessarily fit with BSM at the time. So I said to Jack, do you want to start a new thing so we can put some of that out? Over the years, we've worked with like Johnny Foreigner, Ditz, Tiger Cub, Art Brute. We've done some slightly weirder things as well. We worked with QI on their podcast. We put out a vinyl for that. And we're currently working with a children's cartoon called Yuki, which has musicians on it. So we put out a single from Rivers from Weezer, where he's actually on the cartoon playing a pigeon who's forgotten how to fly and sings a song. And we released that as a single.
Of course he is.
It's actually, Kit might be just a bit too old for it now, but I think anywhere between about 2 and 5 years old is pretty good age for this. It's on CBeebies. It's worth a watch. There's Lauren Laverne, Wet Leg, Tom Odell, all these musicians on there. So we do that. 4 years ago, nearly, I started working with Run for Cover, an American label, where I'm one half of the European team for them. So we work with bands like Basement, AFI, Citizen, Turnover, Angel Dust, Nothing, quite a few like big artists. And in addition to that, I'm also kind of a bit of a hired gun for other labels. So I worked with Wax Bodega on the Hot Mulligan campaign recently, working with their business as well on bands like JPEG Mafia and Thrice, Sophia, Isella. Previously worked with Dynalone on James's favourite band, Dirty Nil. So just whoever, often it's sort of international labels who maybe need a bit of help in the UK will get in touch.
So what would that be? I'll try to. Both of you try, but what does that mean? So you've got a UK US label, and they're like, okay, we have Thrice. Did you mention there?
Yeah.
Help us out. What does help us out mean for you, for your point of view?
So at the moment, I'm contacting shops and saying, hey, we've got a new record from X band coming up. Would you like an exclusive vinyl color, or would you want to do an in-store? That kind of thing. Sometimes I'm in touch with booking agents, helping sort of like figure out touring and stuff. Sometimes I'm helping build the team. So maybe there isn't a booking agent, so I'm trying to introduce them. It's all sorts. And it can be as simple as just going to the show and sort of giving that label kind of boots on the ground. So I'm just there to say, hey, if you need any help over here, I'm here. Printing merch, finding hotels, whatever it is needed, basically. It's just so that the label feels like their artists are supported in this territory. So I'll do that kind of thing.
That must be much more hands-on than a lot of labels are, right? When you're talking about helping find an agent or booking a hotel, particularly, I mean, that's more hands-on, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think that's something I've always done. I mean, with BSM, well, in every project, really, it's whatever's needed. And so some bands, you just manufacture their vinyl, hand it to them and say, thanks, have a good campaign, and that's almost it. Whereas others really need a lot more. I remember Kevin Devine came over a few years ago, and embarrassing, I don't drive. I can't drive myself, but he came over and he doesn't know, he'd never driven this side of the road previously. So I went on the tour with him just to sort of be there and be like, you're on the wrong side of the road. Yeah. I went into central London to pick up a guitar for him, just so he's got it ready. Book the hotels, just whatever's needed. So it can be quite intense at times. And on the other end of the scale, sometimes it's quite, you're barely in touch with the artist at all.
That's pretty. It's interesting. I'm learning stuff about you I didn't know. So I guess we're about halfway through your list of jobs now, are we? Because there's definitely more. There's more. Keep going.
That was a good sort of break, because that was basically the label side of what I do. The other jobs I do, I'd managed a band called Delta Sleep, who have played Arctangent a number of times, and Trees a couple. I actually started managing them at Arctangent 3 years ago, but I've been working with them for 12 years on the label side. And so in that case, it's a continuation. I've been texting them this morning. They're actually on tour with Hot Mulligan in Europe. We're about to announce another UK festival for them. There's an Australia tour being announced soon, and a US tour being booked. So lots of things just kind of plates spinning with them. I work with Jamie Lemon on his Patreon. That was something we started 2 years ago. He obviously, worked in for a number of years through Rubin and his solo stuff. And he was, he is retired these days. As he says, he's playing Arctangent this year. He's still recording music. But he had somewhat fallen out of love with the industry in terms of touring and that whole system of writing, recording, touring, hoping to get press coverage, all the rest of it. And I said to him, well, fuck it, let's do it differently. Let's not do that. Let's not do the bits you don't enjoy anymore. Let's focus on going to a studio to record because you want to, and making artwork. He's an illustrator as well. He likes writing. He's quite sort of cross-platform in his art. And I was like, this is perfect for a Patreon. Let's do that. And so I help him with that. I post out all the stuff for him, put things up on the website, and just basically help him to make a plan. And I'm sitting on about 100 or so old Rubin unreleased demos, which we're dropping occasionally. So if anyone's listening and is a Rubin fan, it's genuinely worth signing up. It's really good. Real interesting insight to his life and everything he does.
So that's access you get via, because he's got a podcast as well, doesn't he?
He sort of dabbles in podcasts. He's very involved in Doctor Who and Red Dwarf and things like that. Musically, he started a podcast, but that isn't running right now. I think that just ran for a moment.
Okay, so you sign up for the Patreon and you get access to so somebody's listening and said, that sounds interesting, Kev. What would they get access to if they signed up?
So there's different tiers on it. So you can just sign up and just receive, he puts together playlists of songs that he's into. So you could just get that. You can pay a little bit more, I think like £5 a month, and you get one demo each month. So it's usually like old Rubin and solo songs. He's got mad ideas. Hopefully you won't mind me saying this one, but he's been planning a pirate-themed opera for the last 15 or so years. I mean, James, Jamie, he has some ideas. So some of those songs have gone out.
Kev, you've just had your first 2 promoters, 1 pod. Shit, should have said that moment.
There's a few of these coming.
of which I'm hoping there's going to be plenty. Welcome to the team.
There's definitely a few to come. He has spoken about it previously. I feel like everyone who's friends with Jamie kind of rolls their eyes and goes, that one. So he's probably said it publicly before. I hope he has. Anyway, so you can get that. You can also, if you pay a bit more money, you can get like a print sent to you every 3 months. I think we do those. He does live acoustic, sort of like these, really. Just people can join and make requests, and he just plays from his living room. So it's pretty good. It's access, as you said. He does that.
Okay, sounds great.
Couple more jobs. And the list is still going. There's a music packaging company called ACD Sleeve, which began back in 2010 when a friend of mine sent me a CD sleeve he had made. And I was like, that's cool. Let's do something with it. It was actually when Blackfish were breaking up. And I said, this is something we could do more of. So he made 100 CDs for us. They sold them at their final show. And I encouraged him to turn it into a business, which ran for 8 years, did really well. He then went off and got sort of proper job in like music packaging and learned more about the industry. And finally, after years of bugging him, last year I convinced him to come back to it and restart the company. It's up in Manchester. I was there last week checking out all the crazy machinery. And we'll talk a bit more about this later, but it's kind of, if you want a really nice CD or vinyl or cassette sleeve, which is sort of foil printed or die cut or anything like that, he's making that stuff. So it's just really nice limited edition records, basically. So that's quite a fun project. It's a little bit different, but it plays into all of my many other jobs. And the final two, of course, is I do the merch for 2000 Trees and Arctangent, which I think is now about 10 years.
Yeah, well, we're going to dig. I think basically today we'll talk a lot about Big Scary Monsters. We'll talk a lot about what you do at Trees and ATG, and we'll see how long that takes. And because I've got loads of questions about the band management that I'd love to ask you. So let's just see how we go.
Cool.
And
so we'll start with the Big Scary Monsters as the focal point. Will we start there then, James?
Yeah. Let's do it. I mean, so I have a list here, Kev, of the bands you've got playing this year. So I mean, just to peel back the curtain, you sent me this list because I didn't know the answer. So that you've got 13 bands playing at Trees this year. That is Arcane Roots, Lambrini Girls, Love Rarely, Pool Kids, Iota, Adore, Slag, Alpha Male Tea Party, By Curious, Vinnie Caruana, if I've pronounced that right, Lakes, Nervous, and Suds. Suds are being announced today as this podcast goes out.
Yes. And Iota is actually I Am the Avalanche. That's the initials.
Yeah. Sorry, there is a band called Iota playing the festival. I reinterpreted your initials. Okay, good point. And at Arctangent, you've got 6 bands, which is Arcane Roots again, Dimcura, Alpha Male Tea Party, TTNG, Jamie Lenman, and Michael Sarah Palin.
Yep.
So, fucking hell, you've got a lot basically. So that's all Big Scary Monsters related. So before we go into like the I want to get an understanding from you. I think the audience would really love to hear about the mechanics of running a record label. But before we do that, tell us about Big Scary Monsters and like what it is and the brand and I don't know, some of your history.
So yeah, I've mentioned, I mean, it started 25 years ago. I think we're all a similar sort of age. So we probably were all at school when it was that whole Blur versus Oasis thing, where you had to pick a band. Who do you two choose?
Mate, I was a rocker. I was like, fuck your indie music. I'm not listening to it.
So it was Blur versus Oasis, and you're like, no, neither.
Metallica.
Yeah.
Metallica.
Gav, did you take a side in this one?
We never really had music at school, so it was football and fighting. It was a wee bit afterwards. There was a girl in school who did like music. You could tell she had the patches like Pulp and Blonde on her. And people thought that whole idea was strange that you would listen to music, so we just get back to punch and fuck each other on the football field. So I never really had a choice of that. But I mean, as of now, I would have went Oasis.
Yeah, that's the way I went at the time. So yeah, like it kind of felt at school for us. It was like, yeah, you have to pick one of those sides, and that to me is one of my sort of earlier memories of music for myself. You know, like really getting into it and I just dug deeper and deeper from there. And so as you kind of got towards the tail end of that Britpop scene, I decided I wanted to work in music. And I didn't know in what kind of way. I thought maybe I want to be a musician, and I bought an acoustic guitar from Argos for about 30 quid. And instead of trying to learn any chords, I downloaded the tab for Plug-in Baby by Muse. And I was just like, oh yeah, this looks easy. Tried it for about, I don't know, 7 minutes, couldn't do it, chucked the guitar, and I was like, all right, now what do I do? And I started Gav, I don't want to give you any PTSD here, but I started a zine and went into like the music sort of press side of things for a minute. The zine was called Always Echoes, which is named after a Llama Farmers song. If anyone listening to this remembers Llama Farmers, then fair play. And basically I probably printed about 30 copies of each one. And I would go and interview bands like Muse and Coldplay and JJ72 when they were like tiny little UK bands, you know, playing to sort of 50 to 100 people a night. And I used to draw really bad caricatures of them. You know, those things where you sort of like you'd do a really big nose or big ears. You'd sort of play on the bad characteristics. And I used to turn up for these interviews, and the questions were so generic. It was just like, I don't know, tell me about your influences. It was the same questions for every band. And then I'd make them sign these really bad prints. And I did this for a while. And then I thought, oh, this isn't enough. I'm a really bad journalist. I shouldn't pursue this. And so BSM kind of just was born out of that, really. So by this point, I was 17 and just decided, I didn't know anybody in music, really. I had no contacts, no idea of what a record label was, but just started it. There was a couple of funny, actually, so I should say, the years since, we've worked mostly with sort of math rock, emo, punk, indie bands. But I looked back at our first ever release last month, and it was a compilation. So we put it out in January 2001, and there's some surprising Damnation links on there. Like Medulla Nocte were on this compilation.
Really?
Yeah, which is quite a strange one when you consider the bands that BSM have worked with since. Knuckle Dust were on there, a band called Underrule, a surprising amount of Australian pop punk bands. It was eclectic, to say the least. And that was our first release, and sort of, just went from there, and kind of got the bug and just kept going with it. And just, I said to myself, all right, at 18, I'm going to stop and get a proper job. And then I was like, no, I quite like this still. And at 20, all right, I'm going to stop and get a proper job. And I kept making myself these promises, breaking them. And now, here I am at 42. And
the next target is 43. You're going to get a proper job.
This is it now.
Yeah, if you're probably going to tell these stories, and there's going to be wee interesting nuggets throughout them. I don't want to keep interrupting you, them, so I'm going to try and take those. The prints with Coldplay and Muse, and have you still got them?
No, some. When I moved out of my parents' house, I think they got rid of quite a fair bit of stuff. There's not a lot there.
There's a fair bit of money right there this morning.
Yeah, although I must admit, actually, when I first moved out, because I was already doing the label, so my cost of living obviously went up, because I was living at home when I began the label, moved into a house with some friends, and I was trying to do a label full time. So I was like, I need to make some money, and I had all these old promo CDs for like Muse and stuff. I was just like, I'm cashing in on these. Yeah, some of these I've got to sell. So quite a lot of that stuff went back then. I still have a few things. I'm never going to show anybody any of it. It's embarrassing beyond belief, but that's how I got started. So
a signed Chris Martin caricature drawn by you would be. I'd love to see it.
If you ever come across him, get him posted up on the group just for people to see. So it sounds like you're getting your first, like the first compilation you put out, kind of the way that James and I get into our first live event, haphazard, naive, and full of the beans, but hoping for the best. So when you're putting stuff like you've got Medulla Nocte and on that, I take it there's no contracts behind it. There's no percentages and royalties and publishing. It's just like, can I get my hands in one of your tunes fired onto a CD at the time and then printed and sold?
Yeah, that was exactly it. It was just, this is very early days of the internet, really. So it was, were we still dial up back then? 2000, 2001? I can't remember now, but yes. So it was just emailing bands and saying, hey, can I get a track from your recent album to put on this? And everyone just said yes. From memory, I think we made 100 CDs, which I just burnt at home. I ran out the ink on my parents' printer, printing the sleeves for it. The front cover was, I was doing an A-level in sort of graphic design, and one of my friends from the class he had this painting. I was like, that's cool, can I use that? It was completely DIY. To be honest, that kind of thing is still there, the DIY roots. BSM is currently 2 people, so it's me and Josie, and we outsource lots of stuff, and it's obviously a much bigger operation now, but in the last month, I've packaged and posted 1,000 records myself. Like last week we were driving all over the country, dropping off records at shops all everywhere. We still love that DIY stuff, and I wouldn't change any of that. For very, very legit reasons. When the label first started to put out a few releases, no distributor would touch us, because I was a 17, probably 18-year-old in my a room in my parents' house. I had no plans, no background. So I had to learn how to distribute records. I had to learn how to build a website, had to learn how to book tours, how to have like run a press campaign, every element of it. And I'm really pleased that I had to do that, because I think that gave me a foundation of knowledge, which, and an appreciation, I think, for the work, which is still there today.
It's quite amazing, really, because you don't seem to resent. Because I've always found you to be someone that always says yes to doing stuff and always up for helping out. I mean, you helped us with podcast merch for absolutely no reward or reason other than helping us and being a nice guy. You never resent that sort of stuff, really, do you? Because I'm always trying to be like, I've been doing this shit job for 10 years. I want someone else to do this shit job now. And, do you know what I mean? I still do a lot of work, but there's some of the stuff I've sort of passed down the line over the years.
I think it must be very similar to you guys. You've got to have that willingness, excuse me, to do anything and to like, at the end of the day, we need to push these projects forward. I've always had this thing, I wouldn't give any task to somebody that I wouldn't be willing to do myself. I feel like that's just part of being in a team. But I also, and I would assume the same as you two, I didn't start the label or get into music to make money. And I don't think you started festivals or promoting or anything for it. You had your reasons you've discussed before. James, you were at Reading and sort of thought, no, we could do something better. And it's that kind of thing. And I think that not having money as my guiding star has really helped me. It's like I'm fortunate now that I do have a few jobs and I do get to make money through what I do. But for a number of years, it really wasn't that. It was just a case of, all right, I'll say yes to this and hope it leads somewhere. And thankfully it did.
Yeah, I mean, in talking of leading somewhere, what are some of the highlights with that? And especially in terms of the festivals, you're seeing your bands at Art Tangent or Trees or wherever you've seen. Tell us about some of the highlights through the years, the past 25.
I mean, there's obviously ups and downs of it, but there's been some really cool moments. I think anytime you see one of your bands playing in front of an audience where it really connects, that's really special. I remember John Peel playing a couple of our songs on his radio show back to back. And as he always seemed to do, he played them at the wrong speed, so it was a proper cliche, like John Peel moment. I was like, this is fucking sick. It was so perfect that he messed it up. And there's a few things like that. I mean, a very recent one, of course, Dimcura, I guess we'll go more into that, but like that's a really cool story, which has huge foundations for the podcast, but also other connections with BSM. So it's been great just seeing all that play out. A fun one that I always like to mention is we actually worked with Andrew WK a few years ago, which was just a series of bizarre circumstances. You guys, obviously you would know the first album, Party Hard and all that, but have you followed or aware of his career at all since then?
I'm not.
For a little bit, only a bit, not loads.
So his second album was called The Wolf, and he basically went full like Meatloaf. It just went musically into this other place, probably not too dissimilar to what you'd expect, but it was fun. And I loved it. And me and my friends used to, we'd listen to it when we're drinking. And I came home one night and I put it on. It's like 3 a.m. And I sent him a message. I just said, hey, Andrew, love The Wolf. You've probably been dropped by now. If you're ever looking for a label, let me know. Went to bed, woke up the next morning, and I had this message from his manager just saying, Kevin, call me. I was like, oh, fuck. Why did I do this? And I ring this guy, and he's driving around LA, and he says to me, he's like, hey, we have been dropped. We're no longer working with whichever major label it was. Andrew's been working on more music. We've been waiting for the right label to come to us. We got your message. And I was just like, is this a joke? Are you for real? And this kind of began these conversations. So we went from there probably over the next year or two, just back and forth, trying to find a way that we could work with him. At one point, there was a talk that he was going to run to be the president of America. And for that, there was a whole documentary being planned around it, all sorts. I wanted him to record motivational messages, which we were going to release on a cassette, all sorts. In the end, we put out this 2-track 7-inch, and I won some money in a fantasy football league. And so I was like, all right, let's make it kind of nice. And we made it a square 7-inch. So it's kind of unusual because everything with him is somewhat unusual. We released it. It sold out. It's great. posted them all out, and it turns out that square 7 inches snap very easily. So I had loads of emails from people being like, not very happy at all, saying like, this is fucked. You need to send me another one. It's like, I haven't got any more. But in that era, we, hung out a fair bit. Me and Jem went and met him in New York, and he just wanted to talk about Mr. Bean and stuff like that. And it was at a point when the label had very little money. And I remember him coming over to play in London, and he had paid for dinner in New York. So I was like, oh, we'll pay when you come to London. And we'd gone for a curry. And I think we had something like 35 pounds in the bottom of the overdraft for the record label. And I said to Jem, I was like, oh shit, we've got to pay. We said we would. And I really feel like I need to do this. And we get there, and the waiter comes over, and Andrew's ordering everything. And I'm like, oh fuck, this isn't good. And he turns to me, he's like, what do you want? I'm just like, plain rice, tap water. Just, let's keep it easy. Thankfully, somehow the bill came just enough, so I managed to pay for it. But that whole era was just this kind of pinch me moment of like, I was having to chase him and be like, Andrew, the deadline for your artwork was last week. What the fuck? And then I'd have this moment like, who do I think I am? Like emailing people like this, just making these demands.
Did you ever party hard with him?
No, I mean, this is still Jem's favorite thing. The curry, like he was ordering all the spiciest things. And the waiter said to him, oh, you really like it hot then? And he said, yeah, it feels like a party in my mouth. It was the guy doesn't switch off. He is everything you see just constantly. So yeah, we didn't party hard as such, but we had some fun times. But yeah, that whole thing was a highlight. And I'm lucky enough to have had a number of those over the years, just working with bands I never would have dreamt of, and crazy moments.
Amazing.
I had a quick search from there. It's got 500,000 monthly streams now, right? Today in 2026. I mean, like, still absolutely huge out there, and with some nostalgia.
That's probably just that song, though, is it? That must be on so many playlists.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got 40 million for that, but even like We Want Fun, which appears to be from a different album cover, 9 million plays as well. It's like, is Andrew WK not ready-made for like trees? Is that something that just wouldn't happen?
He's not an active musician right now.
Is he done? Is he gone away?
Yeah, I don't know. He got married a couple of years ago to I forget her name, but she's in Marvel films and stuff. She's a genuine like actor, really good. And I think he moved from New York to LA, and I think he stopped. I haven't heard anything from him or seen anything for a while. But
I mean, has he got an album, God is Partying? Here we are, the revival of Andrew WK. God is Partying for 2021. So it must be quite a recent thing.
An incredible live show. I mean, James, if he comes back, Andrew WK in the Forest would be a thing.
Okay, let's do it. I mean, we're good at like coming up with these random ideas on this podcast, and then they suddenly happen. Next thing you know, Million Dead have reformed.
I know.
So it's yeah.
That actually leads me to something. Gav, 2 weeks ago, you mentioned Indie Howder, and I don't know if you've seen, but I've introduced you to James to try and make that work, because I'd love to see them at Damnation.
Yes, I was gonna keep that private, Kev, but brilliant.
Are they a BSM band?
That is my second time of saying something I shouldn't have done already. Let's keep
it's all good. Are they a BSM band though?
They were, yeah. So they self-released Enjoy Eternal Bliss in November 2006, and then I hit them up and we re-released it in early 2007. They were not a prolific band because this year is 20 years of their first record and 10 years of their second. So it took them a moment, let's say. But yeah, great band. That would be really fun. And they are planning some live stuff this year. It's just to sort of let people know, I guess it's okay to say that. Hopefully that's not my third one.
I mean, what's the one? Look, I've not had a chance. I've been getting knocked back after knocked back for headliners at the minute. I'm going through it a wee bit with headliners. Never mind, Lord of the Bill. But it was they don't play anything but the first song live. So I think Enjoy Eternal Bliss and full was like not on the table. But we'll see what we can manage in any form. That would be great to have at Damnation, because they're just such a great post-rock band.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'd be great booking for it. So, yeah, fingers crossed that one could work out. And James, one, I don't know if I've told you about this. Back at the Delta Sleep and So I Watch You From Afar show in Bristol, was that December 2024? we had a few beers and we were talking, as usual, about how you would love to have Ruben play at the festivals. And I remember you sort of saying to me, look, we've paid this money for these bands in 2025. I think it'd be this kind of ballpark. And I said, look, I'll speak to Jamie about it. And so I went off fully intending to talk to Jamie about it with some actual sort of vague numbers in mind, thinking maybe you could do it. That night, I had a bit of a boozy dream, nightmare, where I spoke to him about it and he got really angry and chased me. And I was like, I don't think I could bring this up to him. I don't know how he's going to react.
So you never spoke to him?
No, I took the coward's approach in the end and I emailed him so that he couldn't hit me from there. It's still a no. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think I'm embarrassed to ask him anymore now.
One day.
It would be nice.
Yeah, it'll be a good one.
Did you know? I was talking to Simon earlier. Did you know it's 20 years of 2000 Trees next year? I don't think we knew until about 3 hours ago. So it's 20 years. So I'm thinking like Ruben, Biffy Clyro, the lot. Let's fucking do all the things we've never been able to do.
I think it's time for Biffy, isn't it?
Yeah, but you're in Team Ruben.
Yeah, that's true. I can't help you.
I'm tasking you and Matt with getting Ruben.
If there was any chance of trying to strong arm Biffy or emotionally blackmail and whatever, we've got the tour manager and Mike Van Aert coming on in subsequent weeks. So this appeal can continue for Biffy Clyro for Trees 20th anniversary. Starts now.
I was listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs podcast with Biffy the other day, actually, and like some of the bands they were talking about, I almost forget these days because they again were a band that really I was hugely into when I first started the label. But they're so big these days, you kind of forget actually they're of a similar age to us. They come from the same place, and the bands they were naming, it's like shit. Yeah, they're still clearly connected to that. You see from the support bands they choose. I think them at Trees one day is obviously the dream, but I think they would love it. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have my final attempt next year for our 20th anniversary, and then I will give up. Talking of anniversaries, I've got a few audience questions I wanted to ask you about BSM, but is there anything you want to tell us about what you've got planned for your birthday this year? Or
yeah, so we've just put out a compilation last week, actually. So it's got 12 of our bands that we're working with at the moment. So it's kind of like a sampler of where we are right now. BSM's always been quite good, I think, at introducing people to sort of new favourites. We work with artists like Lamborghini Girls from day one, basically, and sort of build them up. So we pride ourselves on doing that. So this compilation kind of celebrates that. And we made it available as pay what you want through our website because we wanted everyone to be able to get it. And then we drove around the country dropping it off in shops so that they could also give it out for free just to get a couple of thousand records out to people's hands. That all sold out, but we kept a few copies back. So if anyone's listening here who would like to check out some of the BSM bands, we've just put a small number back on the web store ready for this to go live in the morning. So if you go to Big Scary Monsters Bandcamp, the compilation is called Hi There. And you can get it for you. It's a minimum of £1 plus shipping. So I think it's like a £5 for vinyl or CD. You can also just listen to it. So I think there's some really good bands on there, and I think it's worth checking out. We are planning some parties this year. We've got, I wish I could talk about this one properly, but there's a show in Oxford. It's on the 14th of August. We're not going to announce that properly just yet. It's in a coffee shop with 120 cap. And the lineup, if anyone's into Arctangent in particular, they're going to love this lineup, but we can't announce it for quite a while yet. So just mark that date off and, be there if you can get to Oxford. We're going to do something in London later in the year and Brighton in May. So we've got a few bits and pieces going on. I think also at the festivals, Trees, that's the most bands we've ever had play at Trees. So I'm sure we'll be doing some stuff to celebrate there as well. I'm also working on another compilation for later in the year, which is at its early stages, but it's a fun project, which hopefully we'll be able to talk about in a few months.
Awesome. Exciting. Well, yeah, let's have a party at Trees this year. The sun is shining today in the southwest, so I'm feeling the summer. Should we have a couple of questions? I've sort of interspersed the questions throughout. So Jay Overend asks, can you ask Kev to get colour, blackfish and shapes back together, please? And on top of that, Adam Daniels asks, can you get Kev to try and get This Girl or Eden Main to come out of retirement? And I'd like to throw into the mix Tube Lord and Tall Ships, please, Kev, and Ruben, obviously. So talk to us about some reformations, Kev. What can we do here?
I mean, well, firstly, shout out to Jay, because I think Jay's been buying records from us for as long as I can remember. There's certain names that I always see cropping up. And I mean, just from the band named here, that's just been with us for a very long time. So thank you for that. Colour, I thought, and James probably backed me up, I thought we maybe had them reforming for Out Tangent last year. That was a conversation which was, it felt pretty close to me.
So maybe, we'll say.
Maybe. That was one, which I would have loved to have happened. And so perhaps.
Was it you get those ones where you get close and it doesn't happen, and then you're like, well, that was the chance and it's probably gone now.
Yeah. It did sort of feel a little bit like that. It was the 15-year anniversary of them breaking up. It just felt kind of right. And the conversations initially seemed quite good, but would love it to happen one day. Blackfish and Shapes. I mean, 2 or 3 of the members of those bands come to Trees every year. So I think a 20th anniversary of Trees offer for Blackfish in particular to come back, I feel like they would say yes to that.
Let's do that.
Yeah, not wanting to put words in your mouth or the members' mouths or anybody else, but hey, they're there anyway. Maybe. Tall Ships, actually, that feels like my life's work right now. Nobody is working hard to try and convince that band to reform over the last year or two. Regular trips to London and Brighton, talking to the board about it. One day I really want to see them come back, because, you guys asked about sort of career highlights earlier. I have quite a few with that band. That they were a special band. They're also one of those unique ones who would sit perfectly at Trees and Arctangent. And I mean, they were quite high up on the first ever Arctangent, I seem to remember.
Yeah, they were. Were you the manager as well?
Yeah. So I worked very closely with them. One day I really hope to see them come back. The other 2, I can't be of so much help. I mean, This Girl, I remember supporting at every gig I went to for a while. They were just all over the place. Every show in London, they seemed to be on there.
They're not a BSM band, ever.
They were not a BSM band.
Okay. It's asking for a lot, that is, Adam Daniels.
But I'll just see what I can do. And Eden Main, actually, I'd forgotten about Eden Main. I used to really like them. I looked them up. They have 116 monthly listeners. Gav, were you aware of Eden Main?
The name. And I no doubt I did see, because when you're younger and they're doing the circuit regularly and you're at every gig that's happening, I think I've seen them a couple of times possibly, but I couldn't tell you much about it.
Yeah, them, and there was a band called Beecher as well around the same time.
I mean, I loved Beecher. We tried to get Beecher back in sort of Damnation 2014-15, and it looked like it could have been a possibility, and then it just sort of fell by the wayside. But Beecher were amazing.
Yeah. So good. I think they were similar. I link the 2 in my head anyway, so I think it was a similar sort of time, similar kind of sound. But yeah, I mean, Gav, ever listen to Eden Main? Maybe you'll love it, and maybe that's a Damnation 2027 band.
And see, from the point of view from a manager or record label boss, sometimes in your capacity both, what role do you play, if any? I mean, do you wake up in the morning and say, today I'm going to go and try and reform a band? Or is it when you see there's a real hunger for it? When people are saying, like, for example, a vinyl repress, you need that all the time on the, can you just get that one vinyl repress? I mean, how often do you think about that sort of almost proactive, not just in the job that you've got to wake up and do each day, but proactively, let's go and reform Tall Ships and let's get a repress for Eden Main or fucking Ruben or whatever. How much time do you spend with that?
A bit. It's sort of, I don't think there's one thing which kind of inspires it. It's just sometimes maybe I'll be listening to one of those bands, it's like, fuck, they were good, or socially still hanging out with the members, and it's just a case of just the right moment in the conversation to be like, would you consider, it just sort of comes about. Like you said, the vinyl thing is a big one. We worked with Jet Plane Landing to reissue a couple of their albums on vinyl, and we'll do the others at some point, and we spoke a lot about them coming back to play shows. And again, that was one which for a moment looked quite hopeful, and I still, fingers crossed, they will one day come back. But that one was really inspired by the vinyl. That was like, I just loved that band and wanted to have that record. And then that conversation naturally led itself to say to them, would you be up for playing shows? So sometimes it goes that way, sometimes not. I had a fun experience. I was at a festival in Florida at the end of last year, and I was wearing a Modern Baseball t-shirt. And Modern Baseball are one of those bands that have got a lot more popular since they broke up. I think they're on about 2 million monthly listeners now. And people loved them at the time, but love them even more now, it seems. I think they've had some TikTok viral moments. Anyway, it's the very end of the festival, and this drunk guy comes up to me, and actually, I should say, I text the manager earlier. I'm good friends with the manager. I text him. I was like, hey, will Modern Baseball Reformer play this festival next year? Yeah, do you think that's on the cards? And he was like, no, it's just not at all. End of the night, this drunk guy sees my Modern Baseball t-shirt and is like, mate, next year, they're here. And I was like, and he's like, I'm telling you, I've heard they're definitely here. It's happening. And I thought, it's kind of funny because there's 5,000 people at this festival and he's found the one who knows for a fact they're not playing. And he is there telling me.
Don't break his heart, let him believe.
Oh, I did. I was just like, cool, see you next year. I mean, I won't and they won't. But yeah, it was just one of those moments. And I quite like those sort of Reformation stories. And, you know, when rumors start going around that certain bands are coming back, and it's quite fun from a nostalgic point of view for me as an old guy to get into all of these things.
Again, from your unique perspective, what is it that, firstly, these bands that gets them to break up? I mean, is it the burnout or start falling out with each other about some quite childish things that they later say, oh, what were we even arguing about? And what is it that tends to get them back together?
It's all sorts. I mean, Hell is for Heroes is like quite a trees related example. You know, they I think it was a bit of burnout. You know, they were old friends that just went through the mill. You know, they put out a few albums and just fell out of love with it, and so they just stopped doing it. And then years later, I think it was around the 15-year anniversary of the first record, and they were like, somebody must have got in touch with their booking agent and said, would you be up for playing some shows? And they got back and, you know, they practiced a couple of times and just fell in love with it again. They enjoyed hanging out, going to the pub afterwards, just being mates. They did those shows. They went really well. They came and played Trees. They've been back to Trees twice, actually, since Reforming. And the second one, so we work with them. We put out their records now. And I went to the pub with them before the second time they were playing Trees. And it was really sweet because they'd rented a massive Airbnb near the festival, and they were all bringing their wives and their kids. And on stage, I mean, anyone who saw it, Justin's kids wouldn't leave his side during that whole set. They were just up there. It was really wholesome family moment. And it's great for them because they've gone through that whole thing. They don't care about being a big band anymore. They're not in that rat race. It's now just, we enjoy hanging out together. We get to go and play these shows and write new music and just enjoy it. They've all got careers and families now. And it's taken that pressure off. And it's really cool just to see them come back for all the right reasons and none of the wrong ones.
Oh man, I fucking love Hell is for Heroes. So you made me excited telling that story. That made me feel all tingly, Kev, like that.
It was a really sweet one, actually. That was watching them play up there, just with all the kids lining the sides, and just, yeah, it was really good. They loved it as well.
Here's one from Matthew Davidson. How much say, if any, do you have in album artwork, or do you give complete artistic freedom and approve everything regardless?
We leave it to the bands. I don't think we've ever rejected artwork, not that I can remember. I haven't always loved it, but it's like, it's their art, and if that's what they want, that's fine. I think, I do remember Delta Sleep when they were working on their most recent album, Blue Garden. Like every band, all of the songs had working titles, and they'd named them all after, vaguely connected to Lord of the Rings. And one of the singles we had decided, quite close to actually going into campaign, was still called Gandalf's Bulls. And I was like, you can't. You absolutely can't call it this. So I do remember having conversations about song titles, probably more than I have artwork. But yeah, generally speaking, we leave it all to the artists.
Yeah, because is that a thing about the song titles? Where do you stand? Say there's some let's say you put the word cunt in the back of your vinyl. Now, you might not be opposed to that, but then you've got a conversation with every single record store that you walk into about that being censored or not. I mean, you had situations like that, fuck cunt with these, you need to be like, shit, here, this is what we've got. They're actually quite a twee band, but for some reason there's this song in the back that's absolutely disgusting to some people. So where do you go with that?
That can be tough. Just before I started working with Run for Cover, they released an album from Portrayal of Gil called Christ Fucker. And that's a tough one to put into shops or, in front of anybody really. And somebody had the idea of basically covering up the text and just only showing S and T through like a die cut sleeve. So effectively to shops, you could say it's ST, self-titled. But yeah, that record was called Christ Fucker. And it was like, from what I understand, a fair few conversations internally of like, how do we get around this one? So yeah, it can be tough. We had it with Lamborghini Girls as well. There was a song on the EP that we released, which I won't tell you the title they wanted to call it. It was very long and Jill Scarlett would not approve of the language. But we sort of said to them, they wanted to be a big band and they wanted it to be on playlists on Spotify and all this kind of stuff. We're like, with that title, it can't. So, it certainly wasn't a case of censoring it. It was just whatever you want to call it, you can absolutely call it that. You just need to be aware that there are certain things which might not happen with a song with that title.
Makes sense.
Interesting. Okay, Pete Gillespie asks, or he says, it's amazing to see Dimcura added to the BSM lineup recently. Is there a criteria you look for in bands you work with, and how do you decide which bands fit?
Yeah, can this be an expansion in the whole Dimcura story from your side of the alley?
So there's no rules or anything really, on genre, on the size of the band, on the location. There's nothing. It's first and foremost, we listen to the music, and if we like it, both me and Josie, we don't both have to love it, but one of us has to really, really believe in it, and the other one will sort of, not hate it. There has to be a passionate advocate for it within the company for it to work. We have to, secondly, and really important, we have to like the people. If we don't get on with them, if we feel like it's not going to be a good match, we won't do it, because you're working very closely with bands. You're in contact during a campaign every day, quite often, for hours every day. And it's just, you've got to be on the same page. And I think also, like, the third important thing is we need to feel like we can actually help the band. We often will sit down with them and say, like, what do you want to achieve? What kind of career are you looking to have? What do you want to do with this record? And we've walked away from things before. If a band says, like, we want to be the biggest band on the planet, it's like, great, and hopefully you will be, but we're not the label to be able to do that. You probably need to go to a major or somebody who can put more into this. So it really depends. And that does segue quite nicely into Dimcura. So I, like most people listening, first heard their name through the podcast when you were passionately talking about them. And then it turned out that Josie and her brother Tommy, who also works with us on the merch team, are friends with them. They grew up with the members of Dimcura, and so knew them. So as everything started to roll, we were quite closely involved in it, in that, like, when Arctangent came along, the band went to Tommy and Josie and was saying, how many t-shirts should we print? And like, should we make CDs and all this kind of thing? So we were kind of like, well, not so much me, but those two were really advising and helping from the start. And then Arctangent happened, and I met a couple of guys. One of them was actually in a band that I'd worked with previously, Benio, who's now joined on bass. So there was connections there. And I said to Josie one day, I was like, is this crazy? We've never done anything musically like it. Not since our very, very first compilation, but this record isn't on vinyl, and I feel like people would like it to be on vinyl. Should we do it? And so she texted Sam in the band, and we had some quite honest conversations, and we really encouraged them to speak about it as well, because we said, like, BSM is not musically an obvious fit for that band as a label. We'd love to work with them if they're up for it, but if they would rather wait and see who else comes along, we totally understand. We would just like to help them out. And they were all into BSM bands as well. They loved Caspian and Tangled Hair and various others. And so we all spoke, and it just felt like a good match. And me and Josie had conversations internally as well. Like, do we genuinely think we can help this band? We want to help build them a team. And so we've brought in Sammy from Employed to Serve and Church Road handling press, and friend of the podcast, John Niblock, is now booking them. So we've been able to start building it out a bit for them. We came up with the idea with them of doing this live session, which they've posted. The two promoters print, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, all this kind of stuff, and we just kind of built that campaign, and it just couldn't have gone better, to be honest. I said to Josie last year, I've wasted 25 years on emo, when the first metal band we do is one of the biggest selling pre-orders we've ever put out. Like
that was a fun morning, and a real play. I'm so delighted that that happened. You managed to take the morning, but the reaction to that. I mean, I've never run a record label, but I assume it's like everything else, selling tickets, selling merch. Like, it can be difficult, it can be tough, and you never read stuff. So sitting that morning in like 100 vinyl going before anyone's actually said anything out there it just seemed a bit surreal.
Oh, genuinely, when me and Josie spoke about it, and we put together, we always put together a little budget here, sort of like kind of a best case, worst case scenario. And we're like, okay, worst case, I'm confident we could sell 100 LPs here, which it'll get close to breaking even. It probably would have lost a little bit of money, but we're helping some friends out. We're getting it out there. It's like, fuck it, we want to do it. Let's try it. So to sell 100 records pretty much before, I'm not even sure Josie had woken up by the time that had happened. It was like, it was early in the morning to see all that come through. And then you're still going through that thing of like, okay, those 100 have gone, but maybe it's just going to stop. Because some pre-orders do that, it just drops off a cliff at a certain point. But it just kept going and going. We're distributed via a company called The Orchard, and Dave, who works with them, listens to this. So, hey, Dave. He, over the years, has had a few unfortunate emails from me, which is a good problem to have territory, I guess, where I have to email and be like, hey, Dave, you know how we said you can have 200 copies of this record to put into shops? You actually can't. Like, we can maybe get you 100 now. And so we were having to dial things back like that. And speaking to people saying like, oh, there was a shop in Belgium who wanted 20 copies. And initially we said yes. They were like, actually, they've sold. You can now have 10. And it's such a cool thing to be able to send those messages. It just kept rolling. It continues to roll. It's awesome. Like, lovely guys, amazing band. Real privilege to be a part of that one.
Do you immediately start thinking, right, well, let's get these fuckers writing again? Because you weren't even fully involved in the first album, so you must be like, come on, let's go.
We had a Zoom call with them last week where we said, right, fuckers, start writing. So yeah,
I've never been so nervous for a band. I'm nervous about the second record.
They have ideas. I'm not going to say too much because I don't want this to be the fourth thing that I already shouldn't have said, but no, they are conscious of it. And I think also they're very engaged with it now, not just because of the vinyl, but because of everything that's happened since Gav first mentioned them on the podcast. It's like they've gone from being a bedroom project to being a band, a real band, where there is a certain amount of, I don't want to say pressure, but expectancy, I guess now. And they're now into that whole system of, what comes next. But I genuinely think only good stuff. I think there's just so much scope for this band to still grow. We're going to see it in May on the tour. They're going to play to so many new people, and that it still just feels like the beginning.
Amazing. You're going to come to the Bristol show for that?
I am, yeah.
Yes. Good.
I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, does this make you think, like, your mind is now open, like BSM can release these sorts of records? Do you start thinking, well, what's next, or is it not that at all? Really?
Yeah, it is a little bit, actually. And funnily enough, me and Josie had already had vague conversations about another band that kind of exists in that world before we even put Dimcura out. Because we very much like, if it became an option and if we feel like we've done a good enough job on Dimcura, we would consider this one. So I think we would. Like I said, we're not like confined to any genres. Over the years, BSM has always been quite eclectic. We haven't put out a post-rock band for a while. I'd quite like to do another post-rock release at some point. That's something, we never actively look for certain genres, but I think there's certain ones where you're keeping a little bit more of an eye on than others. And that's probably one of them. And I should say, on Dimcura, the print thing, I packaged up all those records, and there was a lot of them. And we have a company that handles our mail order fulfillment, but I was like, I really want this one to go right. And not that I don't trust them, but I'm going to do it myself, so it's definitely correct. You can see why this is going. I packaged all these records, and then I went away to America to a festival, and I'd left them all around the house, and I'd said to Jem, don't touch any of them. this part in the living room is the ones with like the two promoters prints. The ones under the kitchen table are others. You know, it was in my brain a very well organized system, and I'd written your names on two of them because Gav was supposed to have print number 1 and James was going to get print number 2. That was the plan from the start, and I thought that was what had happened. Then on the Facebook group, what was the guy's name? Was it Joe Gallagher?
Joe Gallagher, because it's etched into my brain.
Same. I saw this post come up and it had 001 written on it, and my blood went cold. And I was like, fuck, what have I done? And I quickly text James, and sometimes texting James is like reaching out to some sort of customer service where, you know, where it's like, oh, we'll get back to you in 5 working days. And I'm like, uh-oh. A couple of days later, James replies, he goes, yeah, I got the record. Thanks a lot. I'm immediately replying while I'm hoping you're online. Like, did you get a print? And he said, no, and neither did Gav. Oh my God. And then someone posts 002 on the Facebook group. I don't know what I did there. I packaged them all. When I got back from America in my jet lag state, I printed all the labels, put them on, sent them out, so confident I'd done it right. So this is my very public apology. Well, and not to Joe Gallagher, it's fucking worked out for him, but to you two, sorry.
Yeah. No, listen, at the end of the day, I appreciate you sent it vinyl, and then you sent me a second one. I mean, is that a secret print, that second one, or can it be revealed?
No, the second one, there was one thing in there that is a secret, but the second print is not a secret. That was just, I think it mentioned you might frame it, and I thought if you've got 2 copies of it, you can, if you wanted to show both sides.
Yeah, okay, well, I appreciate that. And Joe Gallagher, if you want to bribe me and have my sign print for your 001, I am open to being bribed, mate. Have at it. I am going to get it, but I'm going to get it framed. I'm going to get regardless of whether I've got the print, I've got company, or I'm going to get it framed. And you sending 2 prints is ideal. Because, well, I've always wanted to get my Rollo Tomasi 20 years football shirt framed, but what side do you frame? Because the back's got the 20 Machinali, which is obviously what you go for, but then it's not a Rollo Tomasi shirt, so you kind of feels like you need 2 of the shirts to do it justice.
You've got to wear these things, mate.
He's got
ready to go there.
He's wearing it, so I always look at that shirt. So I'd like to get that framed, but then who knows? If they ever play Damnation 1 year, maybe get it signed first.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. That's what I kind of thought. You could show off both sides of this one, but I did, honestly, I had a moment when he posted 001, and in my brain, I was like, are there 2 number 1s? Like, has Gav got a number 1 as well? Honestly, I went through every scenario in my head. You got, mate, whatever
you don't need to. You don't need to apologise, and I appreciate you being the 7th person on this podcast that's mentioned me not replying to messages. It's just that my life is just people disappointed in me. Can we make me happy by letting me open a present? Is that a thing we could do?
Go for it. We'll call this a second birthday present to you both.
Sweet.
Fuck yes, this has been sitting.
While you're opening this, I should say this is one of those things where sometimes I run ideas by Jem, and she just looks at me blankly, and I'm like, "This is a good idea, right?" And she was sort of like, So I hope this lands.
No way! Get it open, Gav. Fucking hell, mate. Kev, what? This?
I've got first James. I've got stop.
My head is going to explode.
Right, well, I will get right. Stop. If this isn't during the podcast, close this back up. There's more than messages inside.
Extra layer of security.
I'm actually going to cry, mate.
Shifty, cut that.
Fucking. Oh my God.
Right, so what the fuck am I looking at here? This is incredible. Explain. This is terrible for people who don't watch, right? But we've got
you are so fucking amazing. I love you so much. Can you tell everyone what we're looking at?
James has always said that he wants a live album from Trees or Arctangent, and no one's ever recorded one. So this is, I guess, the first ever live at 2000 Trees album, which is the podcast from 2024, pressed to vinyl. There's only 2 copies in the world, hand numbered. Gav, I'm afraid you did get number 2 on this one, I think.
Right. I cannot, honestly.
But
what an incredible thing to have.
So
side A is side A.
James,
live at
shut up. You trying to tell us what it is?
Mate, I'm fucking overwhelmed here. Give me a chance.
There's 2. The Trees one is a double LP in the left-hand side as you open it, and in the right-hand side there's one for Gav.
Right, so So what is this Live at Damnation? What's Live at Damnation?
There's not a second of audio on that because you've never recorded one.
Oh, yes.
Brilliant. And this is a podcast recorded onto.
So yeah, it's a double LP of Live at Trees. The first year you performed, spoke, however you referred to it. The second one is what would have been Live at Damnation had it ever happened. I must give a shout out to Shifty, who helped me with no questions asked. Shifty is finding out now why I've been asking for this stuff. I emailed and said, hey, do you have audio from the first time at Trees? And he said, yeah, here you go. And I said, do you have any photos? He said, yeah, here you go. I never told him why. So this is it. There's 2 copies of this in existence, and you have them.
It's got honestly, this far surpasses anything that's ever happened at the festivals. It's better than the day my son was born. Like, this is, and look at the detail in here, mate. I fucking love you, Kev. Thank you so much. Seriously.
So, if you're a listener, this is well worth just having a quick
look at this photo as well. The Damnation one. It's just got a chair tipped over. Empty stage, Gav. No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure, Gav. But I think the people want a Live at Damnation.
Is this the company you were referring to earlier?
Yes.
That do these special ones? I mean, look at that.
It's hard to show off, isn't it? But it looks so cool in person.
Kev, honestly, mate. Honestly, I cannot even start to thank you for that. It's fucking incredible. I love it so much.
Good.
I will post some photos on the group so everyone can have a look at what you can't buy, because there are only 2 in existence.
You are very welcome. No, it was an idea I had a while ago, and I was like, I think this would be fun, and just wanted to do it. And then Tom, when ACD sleeve came back, I said to him, well, could you make a really cool sort of die cut sleeve for it? So the whole thing, when you get it just right, it looks incredible.
I mean, it's cool as fuck. You've
so
nailed
there you
it.
go.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, mate. It is greatly appreciated. What a fucking amazing gesture.
No worries.
Thank you to all involved, including you, Shifty, for your work in it as well, pal.
Yeah, big shout out to Shifty. So Shifty provided the audio and the pictures. Jem put it all together. Tom made the sleeve. Lave to the grave, pressed the vinyls. So there's a whole bunch of people working on it, and I'm really pleased.
Thanks, everyone.
If
we're in the same room now, I would be lifting you up above my head.
I'm just so glad they didn't get lost in the post. I was paranoid about that.
Oh, no. And we've got a podcast to do. You're sitting here just beaming like, let's go for a pint.
Okay, so let's fucking thank you. Seriously, I will thank you again more.
James,
okay.
So we'll do while we're talking about presents, let's share the love and the joy. The last week's Patreon or super sub was a chap who picked out Tom Bromilo, and he said, "Hi guys, excited to be pulled out the jug. My wife and I have always dreamed of watching a band from the side of stage at Tree's main stage and be able to look out into the crowd and festival from the band's perspective. Would it be possible, once the stage lineups have been announced for this year, to pick a band, not the headliner, to watch from side stage? If not, I will think of something else." Now, you said previously, James, this isn't possible just to keep doing this for people because obviously it's a wee bit of a headache by the time you get to the festival. But given you've just received that wonderful package and you're full of the beans, and the guy says it's a dream for him and his wife, surely you can make this happen one more time for one person and then put a lid in it for Trees.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. You'll have to send me probably more than one band that you want to watch, and we'll make sure you watch just one of them, because it's not going to be possible for everyone. And some of the bigger bands, you can't see anything either, because they like, I tried to watch behind the stage for I think Alex on Fire last year, and there's just too much up there to even see. So yeah, we'll make it happen.
Well, that's very generous. You caught him, Tom. You caught him at the right moment, because that was definitely going to be a no otherwise. So yes, Tom, I hope you and your wife enjoy the dream of being in the main stage watching one of those bands. This week's lucky sub is always great with the fucking pronunciation it, Laima Lima Mori, Laimamori. So you know who you are. drop us a line. Let us know what you would like from our Jug of Joy. You want to be involved in all this happiness. Two Promoters, One Pod / patreon.com/Two Promoters, One Pod. I'm right in thinking you're a sub as well, aren't you, Kev? You actually subbed to the podcast.
I was so hoping my name was going to come out right then. That would have been so good. I've started a list actually of what my request will be. And James, you better hope my name never comes out, honestly.
Well, at some point.
It's like my number one on my list, and I'm going to ruin this right now, is that James has to buy a burner phone and only give me the number.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We can do that, mate.
And you can switch on.
Next time I'm freaking out that I've sent you the wrong thing, I can just be like, James, have I? Yeah, there's a whole list building. So by the time my name comes out, I'll be ready.
Well, I think, Kev, after this stunt, I'm sure you can have as many requests as you wish. And look at us, James. These gifts, and you got nothing for the Big Scary Monsters 25th birthday party. We never sent them anything.
No, it's embarrassing. It's not too late, mate. It's a year-long celebration.
That's right. It's a year long. It's a year long.
We'll drink some beers in Bristol in May.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. So we'll get into the sort of more the mechanics of running a record label. You want to tell us a bit about, I mean, even when you were talking about the Dimcura thing there and saying, we're going to send 20 vinyl to Belgium, but you sell too many, you're only selling 10. Tell us about the actual process, about creating a vinyl or the start of a business plan when a band comes to you. Tell us about the basics and mechanics. Like, we've never heard of a record label or producing a record label, how it all works before.
Okay. So record labels are a really funny thing because everybody has heard the term record label. They know what a record label is, but no one really knows what it does. I have this constantly, like the in-laws every Christmas. They're like, so is it a shop? So kind of. And, whenever I go to get my haircut and they'll sort of be like, so are you on your lunch break? And you think, fuck, here we go. Because the next question is, what do you do for a job? And then it's like, do you work with any bands that I know? It's like, probably not. And it's just, it gets difficult. So a record label basically sits in the middle of a lot of what's happening around an artist. So we would handle the manufacturing, distribution, would kind of build the team as well. So we're bringing someone in to handle like press, radio. If it's an artist of a certain size, you've got those people in other territories as well. So you're working with, booking agents, people all around the world. And you're kind of the one that's sat in the middle, especially if it's a smaller artist who doesn't have a manager. You are kind of the de facto manager, and you are just mostly, honestly, sitting behind a computer, sending out hundreds of emails every day, just making sure that everything is ticking along from the moment you find a band. So the Dimcura example, that whole thing happened. You talked about it on the podcast. I thought this sounded cool. Turns out Josie's a friend of theirs. She texted him and said, would you be interested? The wheels kind of started moving from there. So it's like, all right, they would be interested. What does it look like? Let's put this record out on vinyl. It's already up digitally on Spotify and stuff, and it's already on CD. So vinyl's the missing component there. So let's do that. So then the band needed to create the artwork for it. We need to decide what kind of like color the record is, all that kind of stuff. We then start speaking to our distributors and say, right, this record is coming. Could you pitch to this shop? Can you make sure these places are stocking it? We brought Sammy on to handle press. So we'd have a call with him and say, like, what do you think the targets are? Can we get them in Kerrang, Metal Hammer, all that kind of stuff? The band wanted a booking agent. So we spoke to a few agents to say, have you got capacity for these? I think actually, James, I'm pretty sure I spoke to you about this and asked for recommendations of agents for them. And so you just start building things from there. Then the record sort of came out, and the stage we're in right now is we have calls with them every few weeks just to sort of check in and be like, hey, how's it going? Are you ready for the tour? Are you writing? Are you up to date with all your interviews you need to do for press? Just, it's a little bit of everything, basically. And that's, I think, partly why I have so many jobs. All of this stuff just kind of blends. Anything within music, you're always spinning plates and you're always kind of bouncing between projects. And that's effectively what this is, just on a pretty big scale at times.
How does without asking anything that you don't want to talk about, in terms of money, how do you make money? How many records do you lose money on? There must be a bunch where you make nothing on, right? That you don't sell enough. You've got a warehouse full of, you must have old records somewhere.
Yeah.
of
Yeah, you
stuff that you
do.
didn't make money on.
Unfortunately. So like the main sort of money that comes in is via streaming, which is obviously well documented. It doesn't pay a lot per stream. So you get the money coming from that. And then from the record sales, which is through shops, through your website, on tour, all those kind of things. So you've got this like pools of money coming in. They're your main revenue streams. The sad truth is it's very expensive to release a record these days. And so the less new records we put out, probably the better the business does in a year, because
Could you tell us what, like, without giving away anything that you don't want your artist to know, how much does it cost to release? What's the most expensive it could be to release a record for you, or the cheapest it could be? Give me a number.
the cheapest you can really put out a record if you're doing it on vinyl. And let's say you're not handling, like, you could handle press and stuff yourself, but if you were employing someone to handle press, radio, and release a record on vinyl and run a few adverts on Instagram, you're probably looking close to 10 grand these days.
And that's entirely funded by you.
Yeah, that doesn't include recording the record. So that is just the actual release of the record and promotion of it. So it is very expensive. You can, of course, do it a bit cheaper if you handle press yourself, if you don't put it on vinyl. There's certain things, even the vinyl itself, much like with t-shirts, merch, there's lots of different spec. You know, if it's just black vinyl and a simple sleeve, it's not going to cost as much as a double gatefold in really fancy, you know, foiled lettering, all that kind of stuff. So there's different levels you can go to it. But yeah, it does cost a lot of money. So you have to be quite selective, and you've got to really believe in the band. There's a number of bands over the years we've released where we're just like, we know we're going to lose money on this, but we just really love it. We just want it to exist. We really believe in the band. It's kind of like gambling at times. You know, you're effectively placing what can be £10,000 bet and just hoping that it pays off. And sometimes it does. Sadly, more often it doesn't. And that's why, you know, it's a tricky thing to keep going.
And the gamble being that the same as us as promoters, like you say, the minimum you get this band and it's going to be 10 grand. And then our gamble is, can we make the money back in ticket sales for 10 grand? For you, you do a 10 grand, it's the vinyl, it's the campaign, it's everything involved in it. The idea being that you hit a break even point, you sell enough records where the margin on the records, you get your 10 grand back. And then after that, the margin is when you start getting a bit of profit back.
Yeah, basically, it's that's it. So you have to sell quite a lot of records, because you think, you know, a record these days on our web store, we sell most of them for about £22. And like you've discussed in here before, once you take off tax and the cost for that record to be posted out by an outside company, there's various fees that come off the top. It's not just like we sell it for 22 and all of that money goes into the pot. It is quite tricky. And then not wanting to wade too far into maths with Gav and the versus 80 deals, but it is somewhat comparable in that a lot of indie labels will work on a 50-50 net profit split, which effectively means the label will cover the costs, you know, recoup the money that they've spent on the record, and then everything from there on gets split. So it's not a million miles away from what you're doing with the 80-20 split with live bands. What I'm talking about is obviously very small independent levels. And what I would say is, like, the major label world is a whole other side of things. If anyone's interested in this, I looked it up again yesterday to check it's still out there. Steve Albini wrote a blog years ago called The Problem with Music. And the opening line is called, "Imagine a trench filled with decaying shit." And it is Steve Albini talking about the major label system, basically. And it's quite long, but it's a really fascinating read about how the money goes into a major label, how it's divvied up. This is quite a few years old, but I feel certain a lot of this stuff still works the same way. It's surprising to anybody who doesn't know how major labels work. It is worth a look.
Well, let's share that on our group at some point. So how
and can you expand, because that's the next kind of point? Can you expand on it then, for people that maybe don't read the blog, the differences about where you sit in the industry and the difference in a major label to an indie label?
Is honestly, the lines blur quite a lot these days. You've got some massive indie labels who effectively operate like majors, and majors own companies which might from the outside look like an indie but actually aren't. So it's really difficult to know. For us, I mean, we're a very small company on the indie side. So everything we do, as I've sort of mentioned previously, is very DIY. A major label is just a different ball game. Just the money, the people, the resources, also the care. Like for us, as I said, for us to work with a band, ideally both of us love it, but at least one of us has to really believe in it. Major labels, it doesn't go that way. You'd have an A&R person, you might find the artist, brings them in, and then suddenly you're in front of a team of 30 people who'd never even heard of you the day before. And they're the people who've got to go out there and sell you, basically, and build your career. So it's quite an opposite end of the spectrum. I've never worked for a major label. I've got friends who have. Some enjoy it, some don't. It's just a completely different situation.
How is there an indie label or a major label that you guys look at and say, you know what, I like the way they do business. I like there's something you can live with. There's major festivals out there that some of them do things the right way in terms of how we promote, and then some others don't. Some that it's everything against. Is there anyone you could name check that you say, you know what, they actually, me and Josie look at them sometimes and go, that was they looked after that band, they done well in it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like growing up, I was really into labels like Vagrant and Drive Through, all that kind of stuff. It's a similar sort of time to Sub Pop. There were some really cool American labels that really built genres, and some of them sort of geographically, some of them just like a certain type of music. Label like Discord, there's some really cool stuff. And so I still look at those. I think Polyvinyl, who we work with on a few things based in America, they work with like American football, bands like that. But more recently, Jeff Rosenstock and some really interesting things. I really like the way they do stuff. Yeah, I think there's a good group of people who passionately care about their artists.
Are you ever approached to, like we would be by Live Nation or some multiple other promoters to buy us? Are you ever, because I'd imagine some of those old like Sub Pop or Epitaph or stuff have been, I don't know if those two have, but some of those old indie labels, as you said, have been swallowed into majors and maybe people don't realise. Is that something that...
It does happen. I mean, Epitaph actually have been buying other labels. They've bought a lot of catalogue quite publicly, because that's a big thing which happens at the sort of higher end of the system, but it does come down into the indies as well. And sometimes it's quite surprising. You'll hear these rumours that a certain label is about to be bought out by another one. I mean, even Drive Through that I mentioned previously, I grew up loving like Midtown and Newfound Glory, all those kind of pop punk bands when I was, I guess, teenager, early 20s. But they were part of, I think it was MCA. It was a major label that owned them. So they presented as an indie label. They signed bands in that way. And then if those bands got to a certain level, there was a scalability where it could go up and just, they could become the biggest band on the planet. And that still happens to this day. There's still those kind of things. Some of it's behind the scenes and some of it is quite public.
Okay.
See, when you talk about these major labels, they absorb the small labels, but then they let the smaller label exist as if that never happened. Is that all for public facing, like for the consumer to be still feel or cool enough to be dealing with big scary monsters, when in actual fact it's a Universal or Sony or something? Is that the reason that happens?
I should think so. Yeah, it still has that kind of cool credibility then, with a massive, just behemoth behind them.
And can you speak a bit about, like, 25 years, right? It encompasses all of the changes I mean, you talked about dial-up connections a bit ago. So it's not just it's like the internet comes in properly, then streaming happens. I mean, like the changes to running a record label just must be huge. Is it even the same business anymore?
Well, no, I described it previously as it's not so much the goalposts move, it's the whole game changes. And up till now in the 25 years, it's every 5 or so years it feels like it shifts. Because when I first started it was early days of the internet, so it would have been dial-up. I remember other labels, other small UK indie labels were posting saying, we will never post any of our music online. If you want to hear this song, you have to buy the CD. And I understood why they did it, but I didn't necessarily agree with it. I was kind of like, no, I think hearing one song off of this EP is the best way that I can sell this record because it sounds fucking great. So we always posted tracks. It might take you half an hour to download it and you've got to tell your mum to get off the phone so you can actually get online, but that was part of it. Through that, then you got into like Napster and LimeWire. Major labels were out there suing fans for downloading illegally. Crazy when you look back at it. After that, we kind of got into the legal download side where like iTunes became a thing. That then led to streaming, which is sort of where we're at now. The physical side of it was CDs initially, then vinyl. CDs are starting to come back again now. it all just changes. And I kind of hope we're a little bit settled now. It's hard to see what we go to beyond streaming, apart from the model changing. I think they'll probably be. I don't know if Spotify will forever be the number one. They had a rocky year last year. They made some really they did some dumb shit, didn't they? And so they really tried to alienate a lot of their listeners. And I wonder if somebody at some point will replace them and if that company even exists right now. But it is hard to imagine where we go from streaming in terms of technological advances.
Was it odd for you to be part of this 2.5 decade run where it went from vinyl seemingly was almost dead and buried in like let's we've obviously CDs at that point. Let's have mini discs and the whole what happened to mini disc, and then digital era starts till you get the point of Spotify, and now here we are with cupboards full of vinyl and people buying vinyl because it's almost like you get so detached from a physical product that you go for the most awkwardly expensive one that only lets you play it for 22 minutes on each side just because you want something to hold. And then now you've got vinyl, albeit maybe in smaller quantities, but I hear like Adele vinyl and Ed Sheeran vinyl sells out too. So I don't think it's just this neck of the woods where it's James and I and people listening to this podcast that buy vinyl. So there must be is it weird that you went from a starting point that almost vinyl was dead by the day one for you guys to vinyl being so popular again?
Yeah. And, for a moment, it was a bit of an opportunity for us because people were so fixated on just releasing CDs. We could approach a few bands and labels and be like, hey, can we put this on vinyl? And they were letting us because, and then 5 years later, that had pivoted and no one was giving up the rights to vinyl. They're like, no, we're doing the vinyl. So it does change. And it's interesting to see, one of the shops that we visited last week, they were saying they've just doubled up their CD racks because people are buying CDs again. And you have to wonder if that's a cost thing, if that's a storage. If you try moving house with a big vinyl collection, that's not fun. So I wonder if people are starting to look at CDs. This is one I'd really be interested actually in the Facebook group afterwards. People to say, are they still buying vinyl? Are they switching back to CDs? Are they going digital? No, judgment on any of it. To be honest, I stream more than owning physical music, but what makes people shift in this kind of way? Because I see it with some of my friends and I look at it and you've got more space and more disposable income than you did in your 20s when you were buying records all the time, but now you're slowing down. Why? This should be the time you accelerate into it and your collection grows. And it's fascinating to me, just both from the business point of view, but also just society. Are people still buying vinyl as much as they did? And if not, why not?
I mean, the CDs thing is crazy to me. I own, I don't know, a few thousand CDs and they're currently in boxes. And one day when I've got a bigger house, they'll be out again. But the idea of going back to CDs is just mad because I can't see why it's better than vinyl. If you're me, I can't see it.
Somebody did point out that to a younger audience, a CD and vinyl is kind of the same sort of thing, really. It's like they have nostalgic feelings about it or not. They don't have that those preconceptions or attachments that we do. They didn't grow up with one or other format. It's both of them are new to them.
I mean, the entire fucking project's a bit batshit, to be honest. I mean, I'm getting vinyl. I've got vinyl arriving. I've got the subscription to Pelagic. I'm buying vinyl at shows, and I come back. I'm never opening it. So I'm buying a Roll Tomasi album or albums, and I'm putting them in my vinyl collection, and then I'm pressing play on Spotify to listen to that record, because just the idea of having to do anything and keep going back every 22 minutes and turn it over to listen to the other side, I don't want to go through life like that. So why on earth am I buying vinyl? Is it nostalgia? Is it some sort of moral obligation to the bands? Is it because I want to hold something in my hands? Is it all of the above? It's certainly not because I'm some audiophile. It's like, just that wee crisp that I like when I'm just sitting there, the warmth for the vinyl. And that's not true. I don't have the specs in my back room to be noticing the difference or anything. So why am I collecting vinyl like it's going out of fashion? It's a strange one altogether.
It is, and it really does fascinate me. So I'd love to hear from people about why they collect, if they collect. Did they previously and now they've stopped? Maybe they're just starting. I know some people who are only just beginning to buy vinyl, and that's cool. So everyone's kind of different on this, and I don't really know why the changes come, but
good. Okay. So before we well, is there anything else we should talk about with regards to like the running of record labels or anything label related? Because I want to make sure we get to the festival stuff. Because I think people will be interested in what you do for us.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think I'm happy with that. I mean, we can jump back if you guys think of anything.
Yeah, look, we'll have you on again in the future. I want to talk to you about Run for Cover and Alco Pop and Jamie Lenman, but we can't do your entire career because you've got so many fucking jobs. So
okay, well, let's as the industry say, we can circle back to the other record label stuff at a later point. First and foremost, there's no way you've been involved in this industry for as long as you've been across so many fingers and so many pies and not stumbled across Lou's Brews. So tell us, Kev, there must be a connection there.
Oh, Lou, yeah. So I'm trying to think what year this would have been. Maybe 2010 to 12, somewhere in that era. We actually worked with Lou's old band on Alcopop. The band was called Doctrines. Lou, I'm sorry if you don't like this being talked about anymore, but too late. I'm pretty sure the band actually had Joe, the original bassist from Rollo Tomasi, in them as well. They were cool, kind of post-hardcore sort of stuff, based up in Manchester. So yeah, we put out a couple of records from them. So I've known Lou quite a long time.
I've got one of those records. I wonder if they played Trees way back or not.
I feel like they might have done. I think Jack would have sent it to you and asked for you to book them.
He's a sneaky wee Russian, isn't he?
Yeah.
He gets himself involved in everything. He's got the options. Are we going to list it after? And then his other role then as a sauce creator.
Yeah.
Have you any of your bands ever been involved with any of his projects?
I don't know if we've done any band clubs, but we have just done a BSM one as part of our 25th birthday. So this is actually, it's on our website now. We haven't actually announced it. We're going to very soon. It's called Quickfire. It's I spoke to Lou about it, and the brief was to kind of make something. I'm a big fan like buffalo sauce, and also things kind of like sriracha mayo, sort of like a slightly thicker, more of a taste than a crazy hot sauce. So I asked if he could make something like that for us, and he did. It's great. He sent me a little video of him brewing it up, and he said, his words, is one of my best sauces yet. I don't know if it's on his website just yet, but it's on bsmrocks.com. If you just go there and search for hot sauce, it's kind of buried because, like I said, we haven't officially announced it. But if anyone wants to get their hands on some exclusive hot sauce, it is really good.
Very nice. I'm delighted to hear it. And well, you're keeping in sync with Lou's Brews, his own website, because he likes to bury all his new sauces too, and it's almost impossible to find anything. I mean, last week we made an appeal. He came on to the podcast and done the wee segment where he asked people to go and pick up sauces. And then I get my ear chewed off for about 5 days afterwards about the amount of sauces that were sold out, the ones they couldn't find. I'm like, I'm not his fucking PA. You know what I mean? It's like, you want to complain, you can write directly to fucking Lou's Brews. I don't know why I'm getting told off because you couldn't find the sauce. So, Lou, I was back on today, mate. I don't know what to tell you. You have got one called Kong's Chicken Soup, Great Green Buffalo. You don't see it on the homepage. You don't see new releases. You don't see it. You need to go into page 2 of sauces to find this. I've already had this argument publicly about the seasonings, about how difficult it is to find them. You need a homepage that's either called Featured or it updates that the brand new stuff you've got there is going to the top. Now, if you didn't get any of your sauces last week, get on there. Try this, Kong's Chicken Soup, and he's also restocked one of the best ones he's ever done, Bossman Chili Sauce, the kebab sauce. You've had that one, haven't you, James? The chili kebab sauce.
Yeah.
It's fucking unbelievable. So, a couple of new sauces there. Sounds like a Big Scary Monsters one is going to drop soon too. So that is going to be 3 new sauces you can get. You can try along with Don't Go Baking My Heart. Go and support the guy. It sounded like he had a great week last week. A lot of stuff sold out. Go and grab whatever's left before his new drops come. Pod 15 at checkout. And Lou, let's have a word about our website, mate. It's fucking, you're causing me heartache, mate.
I mean, any sponsors out there, you not only do you get an ad read, you get a little bit of business advice every week as well.
Yeah, you get a little bit of business advice. So yes, let's talk tree stuff at the festivals then, James.
Yeah, so, I mean, tell us, Kev, what do you do at Trees and ATG? What's your role? How did you get involved? Talk to us.
Well, this is a memory test for you. Do you remember how we came to be involved?
Of course not, no.
So
Was it in a pub? I don't know.
Partly. I was thinking back about this. I'm pretty sure. So Arctangent year one, the merch setup was like a wooden structure down near the main stage, which was maybe the width of 2 tables. I think from what I remember, that was all of the merch. That was official band, BSM, and a couple of other labels crammed in there. And I don't think there was a roof. And I seem to remember it started to rain, and me and Jem were trying to get some bin bags up there to cover it. It was very DIY. It looked cool, but not the most functional. Year 2, I think merch moved into a tent, and so BSM was there just with a table selling some of our records along with some other labels, and then all the Arctangent merch and the band merch. And I've got this really vivid memory of there was like 3 or 4 of us sitting there. So, it would have been like me, Dave, Jem, so all the original group. And we're sitting there literally on deck chairs, just having a nice time. And to the right, as we look at it, it's absolute chaos. It was just, I think the team that were doing it previously, I think they'd maybe underestimated how much people love merch at Arctangent. Like, it was too early to really know this. And it was stressful. And we tried to help, and it just wasn't really a way of doing it. And so afterwards, me, you, and Dave went for a beer in Bristol, and we said to you, it's like, hey, we think we could do this pretty well. Like, we do a version of it anyway. And you effectively said, cool, let's do it. Do you want to do trees as well? And it just kind of went from there. And we just grew it all out. And so, yeah, it's been going quite a long time now doing this. That's my memory of it anyway. I guess you don't have a memory.
Was that, were we in Kong's on King Street having the beer? Say yes.
Possibly.
I mean, that's I was really impressed with my memory then. We have had a beer in there. We've had a beer in there. Fuck knows what we were talking about.
Do you know what? The main thing I remember from it actually is I went to the toilet, and on my way back, I had a quick look at my emails. The Get Up Kids are my all-time favorite band. And I had an email saying, do you want to release the next Get Up Kids record? And I came back and rejoined the meeting, and we were still very much talking about like trees and Arctangent, being like, trying to sort of seriously pitch, saying like, we can do this and we should do this. And all I was thinking in my head was like, fucking hell, the Get Up Kids. And I was very much trying to style it out, being like, yeah. Afterwards, we went off and we had a really lovely night. We just, me and Dave really celebrated that one. But that was, we could have been anywhere in Bristol.
I mean, you get and merch is quite a contentious subject when you get involved, especially with bands, and then when it comes to the festivals and then the split with bands. How has that been down the years? Between bands that either just show up and it's just total fucking chaos, they're handing you black bags with 2 pairs of joggies, 15 t-shirts and a vest in it, to the ones that are very organised but do not want to fight the fact that money's going to be taken for them. Talk us through that experience, or anything funny as well down the years, goods and bads.
I think we've never had too much sort of debate on the merch cut side of it. Like, we're very much against that in venues. Like, I think bands should be able to tour, sell their own merch, keep that money. That's an important part of their revenue there. But you guys have discussed it previously. At events like Trees and Arctangent, the whole infrastructure, it doesn't exist. Like those big tents, the tables, the staff, the POS system, everything has to come in. And it's just, unfortunately, that brings a certain amount of cost with it. And I think artists have been 99.99% of the time very understanding of that. So that's always been really good. It is challenging. The running the Arctangent and Trees merch itself is fine. It's busy because you're constantly selling. But you go in with, say, 30 products and you know they're your 30 products to sell. The band side of it is just you just don't know. Like, Josie spends months beforehand. She's going to start any day now, start reaching out to bands and being like, hey, are you bringing merch? You should. We can help you, with the numbers, the sizing, the pricing, whatever you want. But 60 to 70% of those bands just won't reply. And they'll turn up on site and be like, hey, here's a carrier bag. It's like, oh, cool. So we have staff who have to fold it, count it, display it, all of this kind of stuff. It's quite a process. And we know that's it. So we kind of staff ourselves ready for it. I made a list. So the roles now, in terms of what we do, I would say 90%, 99% of the work that I do on the merch front is actually done off-site around the year. So at Trees last year, we began work on Trees 2026 merch. Me and Rob were talking about briefs for the artwork. Jem's really good at noting down if something sells out, she'll make a note of when it sold out. So we're like, okay, there's demand for that we could have sold another 200 of that. we start thinking about it. We're listening to customers when they say, oh, you should really make a zip-up hoodie or shorts or a bucket hat, whatever it is. We're noting it down. So we're already thinking about it. We're already into that process, as well as how we can just tweak and improve our processes ourselves internally. So when we come back the next year, we can run it even better than we did that previous. So we're always thinking about that kind of thing. We're connected. So through the course of the year then, so obviously we go home, everything goes online, sells through, and then we really start thinking more about the next year. Over the course of 12 months, these are the people that I speak to at Trees and ATG. So I speak to James about lineup and new ideas for like products, but mostly, hey, which bands are confirmed so we can start pitching to them. Rob, I'm in contact with mostly about artwork, approval, the tent, how many tables we need, how many chairs, even just the size of the tent, all of those kind of asks. Sarah handles all of the advancing for us, so she'll like be in touch with bands and then putting them in touch with us, and ticketing just for us and our staff just to be able to get onto site. Sai, I speak to about mail outs to make sure it's all being promoted. Mitch about marketing, so running adverts. Danielle is all about payments, whether that's paying a designer to make the t-shirt or paying the bands for their sales. Jock, I speak to about like staff merch and still like some design bits. Katie and Larry on the socials. Matt and Haley on press. Bands, I speak to some of them about doing collab designs. Josie speaks to them about general stock. Dave talks to them about organizing signings. Charity partners, we always do stuff with like Metal for Good, Heads Above the Waves, Women's Institute. So organizing with them. Allotment, print all of the merch and run the web store. So I'm in touch with them daily. Yesterday, I had a phone call with them about vague numbers and starting to think about what we're going to print for Trees. And then there's also other designers. So like Jem designs the football shirts. So there's quite a lot of people. These conversations are all just running the whole year round. So that's why like 99% of my work now is that. And then when I get onto site, so long as I've done everything else that I needed to the rest of the year, on site should run smoothly. And it's like that bit just looks after itself in theory. We have, at the 2 festivals last year, we had 70 people working each one. So there's a lot of staff that come in. You know, people are doing shifts. It's a lot of turnover. The tent itself is open for 12 hours every day. I, like myself, Jem, Dave, Suze, we'll go to site on the Sunday to set up. And then from Tuesday morning, we're there through to Sunday afternoon, just on site, you know, ready to go, basically. That's quite a lot of information I've just sort of said at you. But basically, it's writing it down made me think that's grown to quite a big operation from what it was.
It's massive, mate, isn't it? It's crazy to me that we ever did it in-house, because you just couldn't do that in-house, could you?
No,
I mean, it's just not possible.
There are elements where, you know, we could do it with a few less people, but I don't think we could provide quite the same service. You know, we want people to be able to get served quickly. They're not having to wait for ages for it. You know, there's certain things there.
Because don't you have something like 85, like I think I did a fact of the week that you gave me recently. Something like 85 bands came through ATG.
I think
merch
so.
Done last year.
It's always between like 80 and 100 bands. And as I said, most of them we don't hear from beforehand. The Clown Core story being, of course, the big one of, you know, we couldn't reach them for love nor money. And then the tour manager sends an email at 4 p.m. the day they're playing and said, hey, we're here, but we can't leave the stage area. We've got 4 t-shirts. I'm like, shit, okay, people have been asking for these. These are going to sell. I selected sort of 4 of our biggest members of staff. Like, can you go and lug some boxes across? We need to get these here. They come back half an hour later, each carrying 1 t-shirt. They had literally 4 t-shirts, which they wanted to sell for £100 each. We managed to argue them down a bit. They all sold, but it was just like, why can't you be normal? Why can't you reply to an email?
Why can't you be normal? Has there been times, for example, for us, so we've got the merch tent out there and you think you're doing your level best, where we've had Natasha involved in it, we've got Angela involved in it this year, just trying to move on. But it all sets out and then dragged into the Sunlight Shop, and the location of their table just means that the queue's now spiralling out the tent and round back itself and cutting off about another 7 bands worth of tables, so they're not selling any merch. So it's like, could I have foreseen this? Was there a better way to do it? What could we have done better? Has there been times that you've sat there and went, oh, fuck, look at this. We've messed this up because we could have done X, Y, or Z differently.
Yeah, there have been. And I think I spoke to Natasha about this, actually, because she was great. She called me a couple of years ago about Damnation, you know, when she was looking to improve it. And I sort of said, well, you know, this worked and here's some mistakes that we made, so you hopefully don't have to. But thankfully, I can't think of anything that went hugely wrong. There is you asked about funny stories as well, and there is one. James, you can decide whether Shifty cuts this afterwards. It's a Rob story.
Absolutely not. Then.
So back in the cash days, when the festival, when we couldn't take card payment, there was no internet, so everyone was paying with cash. Rob would come around and pick up bags of money, and he came in. We gave him this huge one at the end of one night, and he went off. And he comes back to me the next morning, and goes, "Hey man, merch yesterday is about 30 grand down." And I'm like, "Oh fuck, what do you mean? Like how?" No, we gave you the money. And he goes off. He comes back a bit later. He's like, "Don't worry about it. I found it in my truck." He had literally lobbed that bag in there, gone off and got drunk, forgot, come back, gave me the fright of my life, and it was all fine.
Mate, that is not the first story I've heard about us leaving a bag of cash somewhere. About 3 weeks after the festival one year, Andy texted everyone saying, "I've just found 20 grand in my bedroom." I mean, the old days of cash were a mad Wild West.
Oh, it was crazy.
Yeah, that'll be staying in. I've got a couple of questions for you that digs into the detail a bit here. Julian Pepper wanted to know, how do you calculate the number of T-shirts required at a festival such as Trees or ATG? And how do you calculate the split of sizes, Kev? Give us the geeky answer.
Magic number. But Kev, I'll be sending you presents every week if you can tell me how to make the split work.
I wish I could. That one is just, no one could do that one. We look at quite a few things. So for working out what we'll print for the festivals this year, we'll look at last year's totals. So we'll look at what we sold before, during, and after the festivals. We'll then speak to you guys about ticket sales. So if, say, there's going to be 10% more people on site, we'll know roughly we're going to print about 10% more. Certain products we'll go very conservative on. Last year, anyone who was at Trees will remember how hot that got. I think we hit 40 degrees in the merch tent at some points. We obviously sold less hoodies than you would hope. So we normally print a few less hoodies just in case we hit another heat wave. But allotment will print, they'll re-up stuff for us with 24 hours notice. So about 3 p.m. each day on site, usually me, Jem, and Suze will sit down and we'll be like, okay, this is about to sell out. This is already sold out. This looks like it could sell out in another day or two. And we'll send allotment the list of what they need to print, and they go off and print them, and they'll turn up back on site. You guys had it with the two promoter stuff for the first year at Tangent. The T-shirts were still warm. We had to do that because it sold out, so we re-upped. So we're really lucky we have that system. Certain products can't be turned around that quickly, so you've just got to take a bit of a guess. And then, yeah, the big question on the size split. Partly it's almost anecdotal, to be honest, because we're printing T-shirts across various labels, bands, festivals. We see quite a broad split. Last year, for the first time, it started to skew slightly smaller again. In previous years, it had always just been, medium, large, and then even bigger sizes. Last year, suddenly, the bigger sizes weren't selling out, but small was. And I don't know if that's a fashion shift again, that we're maybe heading back towards those youth large T-shirts, and all that kind of thing. We'll see this year how that develops. We also send out a survey to all of the VIPs at both festivals, saying to them, like, what T-shirt size do you want? And that data we then look at. So if there's 2,000 VIPs, maybe 1,000 of them answer it, we've got that, which we kind of cross-reference with what we sort of think and put it into the numbers as best we can. We've never hit any of them exactly accurately, but we get fairly close. I'd like to think that people turn up and can mostly get what they want, hopefully.
Yeah. It's crazy. The splits and sizes are its own black magic, but the difference in a change of weather can make is like 20-25 grand worth of stock. We had windbreakers at Damnation, and we're really popular. Art Tangent windbreakers sold them out in a fucking heartbeat and really popular. We done windbreakers that year for Damnation. It was quite a mild weekend. Sold a bunch of T-shirts, sold a bunch of everything, hoodies. Windbreakers never moved. Sitting in the Saturday of Damnation this year, windbreakers aren't moving. Either that night or the following afternoon starts raining. Tom Begley saying, we're shifting these windbreakers like they've just been released today, and everyone was. And it makes sense, obviously, but just that, same with joggers. We sold those long sleeves and joggers that we had for Two Promoters One Pod that went to Art Tangents and Trees. You might as well have not shipped them. I think we sold one long sleeve because at 40-degree weather, no one in their right mind's thinking about a long sleeve T-shirt.
Yeah.
But everyone buying hats.
Yeah, you just can't get it right. I think last year we went into trees with something like 17 pairs of joggers left. So I was like, all right, let's print another 100. We sold 17 because it was boiling. It's like, cool, really glad I did that. And you just can't, you can't get it right. But the weather is such a big factor. I mean, baseball cap sales at both festivals last year were crazy because Arctangent was warm as well. So people just need that stuff.
Yeah, a wee bit of shade. Okay, Josh Payne asks, the weirdest piece of merch you've ever stocked or sold at a festival?
I can't think of anything particularly weird. It's happened a lot at trees where a band will turn up with, say, like a baby blue t-shirt, and what will happen is whoever's sorting it in sort of like the band section, they'll come out and shout to all us, be like, look at this. And we're like, oh, it's disgusting. And then 4 more bands also turn up with baby blue and they fly out. And we're like, what did we know? So it's not weird, but there's always a surprising color. The next year, it'll be like a sunflower yellow. You don't know. It wasn't a piece of merch that we sold, but I did a talk at BIM uni years ago, and a kid had made his demo. He'd come up with what he thought was the best idea, his student. And he'd recorded an EP and put it onto a CD, and he had stuck it on the bottom of a toilet roll. And he just holds it up really proudly. And he goes, TP, EP, TP, EP. And he just kept saying it to me. And he's like, I was like, I get it. And he's like, no, I don't think you get it. I was like, I get it. It's just not that good. The reaction, he didn't get the reaction he wanted, I guess. But that, I think, was one of the weirder ones. Again, not
you guys
merch.
at Alcopop, you do some mad stuff at Alcopop though.
Yeah.
Because if you not released, I mean, I'm just answering this question for you now, but you released a bike, right?
Yeah.
An actual bike.
I fucking hated the bike.
Tell us about the bike.
That was, Jack wanted to release a bike. I can't even remember why. I think we made one for him and then maybe one other sold or something. The idea was you got a compilation with the bike. Jack's dream is to buy a car, leave it in a forest somewhere with a CD wedged into the stereo with a compilation on it. And this is the only place you can hear this compilation. So you have to go out and find this abandoned car in a forest, sit in the car and listen to it.
Mate, come on, Jack, let's do it at Trees. I'm in for this. I am 100%. Because you also had, again, I'm answering the question for you. Gunning for Tamar released an EP on a wristwatch, which I own. Mm-hmm. We released, if you remember, a Frisbee.
Yeah. With
5 record labels, one of which we no longer name, so we don't talk about it. But the fucking Frisbee with a like a download code on it, I love it. We need that sort of shit. Bring it back. Let's do something.
Oh yeah, Jack's your man for that.
Let's do the car.
Yeah, Jesus, the car.
Well, see, for people getting into those towels, Kev, I mean, that was just a wee running in joke for a few weeks on the podcast. Like, those towels were shifting. You were getting them redone at festivals and they were selling more towels, which begs the question why we never done them again, James.
Yeah.
I think we might have hit peak towel, though.
You haven't talked about towels for a minute now, though, so you need to bring them back. You need to run your own marketing campaign there.
But you get these things that you're just like, towels, people like, it's not the fact that, oh my God, that's the greatest piece of merch in the world, or I really need a towel. It's just like, I don't really need another t-shirt. But a towel's just something about a Frisbee, or it's just something a bit different, a bit quirky. Or Bosco the Masters it with our fag papers and fucking roll mats and just candles. People just getting something a bit different for the merch. You're a bit like, this is good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. The another one I've just remembered actually, it's not a merch item, but we do signings in the merch tent. And at Arctangent last year, Callous Boys did one. And we're always like keeping an eye on it in case anyone asks for anything particularly weird to be signed. I think, there's been like an inflatable dick, stuff like that. Callous Boys, somebody asked them to sign their baby last year.
And did they?
Yeah.
Incredible. Incredible.
I don't know who's in the wrong there. Probably both parties.
We've got photos of them and we've never posted them. It's like, is this okay? I mean, yeah.
So look, I've got a special round for you in a second before we with some quick-fire questions. But before we do that, can we break some rules here and just announce a few things that we weren't planning to announce? Because there's a bunch of stuff, right? There's a bunch of exciting stuff going on in the background, which I meant to check with you before we came on here. I haven't checked with you.
Oh God, here we go.
You know that thing we're doing. You know that thing we're doing.
I know the one you mean.
Can we announce that?
No, I don't think we should. This is going to be really cryptic to anyone listening.
I'll do it next week.
the band, the band that we want have said yes, but we still need to work out the logistics. It is, I believe, a world first though at Trees,
Yeah.
and if it works, we'll do it at Arctangent as well. Yeah, I really wanted to be able to talk about it on here, but I don't think we're quite at that stage,
Okay,
and I don't
fine.
want to
What
say
about
we're
a
going to do
collab?
it and then not.
What about that is exciting that people, sorry everyone for being, I've got a secret, you can't know it. Blame Kev. Are we working on, because I really love the collab merch we did last year. Like there was, Lex on Fire t-shirt. I've got fucking house full of posters, my Baroness poster from a couple of years ago. Have we got anything cool that we can announce yet?
Actually, the last 2 weeks they've come together. So Funeral for a Friend, we've got a poster and a t-shirt come in from two different designers, two very different designers. So both are going to look really cool. Arcane Roots, we're going to have stuff at both festivals.
Yes.
Arctangent Perturbator have just signed off on a collab t-shirt. Igor, there's one coming, and there's one more band that I won't say, but I'm pretty sure if Hayden still listens, reply to my email, please, because I want to get this one done. But yeah, they're coming along. I think we're going to have 5 or 6 at each festival, and it's looking good.
Hayden, if you still listen, reply to my emails too, pal.
Well, look, and Hayden, if you're still here, if anyone hasn't had this idea, let's do a Mariner poster, because fuck me, that would be amazing, and Gav wants it on his wall. So
well, that is the thing that he's supposed to be replying to me about, so you've ruined that idea.
Well, let's make that happen, Hayden. That sounds like a class idea. And also, Kev, while you're here, see when we're talking about any of the old records you've got stored, see if you get any of the old posters, any of the ones that are still kicking about, the Mogwai or the Converge and anything like that. Remember your old pals here.
I think I've got a Converge one. Mogwai, maybe. I'll have a look.
Yes.
Amazing. Gav, I'll take you into the merch tent this year.
Yeah.
Kev, it's going to be fucking annoying now. You're going to be famous.
Oh,
You'll have to hide behind the...
I'm staying out the back.
Talking to someone who's famous from the podcast, my brother, Rob, has spent the last 2 weeks just WhatsApping me every 5 minutes with fucking questions for you. So I thought we'd leave it to the end, do quick fire. You haven't seen these questions.
I haven't. I will say, I texted him earlier and he asked if I was preparing for this interview. And I said, yeah, I'm getting some questions. And he said, there's some real zingers in there. And then he says, don't worry, which made me worry way more.
Okay. So these are quick fire. So give us your best. Kev, you ready? Okay. Firstly, why don't you look more rock?
Coming from Rob.
Rob never knew how you were going to dress, so you've done him a solid here.
I mean, Rob, he had his way. Every t-shirt we print would be a plain navy one with no logo on whatsoever. I'll throw that question straight back at him. Neither of us look rock.
Yes, brilliant. When is the pop-up store happening?
Oh man, I really wanted to do that one last year. Let's say 2027.
What's the pop-up store?
We had the idea of doing a 2000 Trees pop-up in London, and we found a really good unit for it, but then they wouldn't rent it to us for the dates we wanted. The idea was that we were going to get some bands, do some acoustic things. We were going to maybe announce some artists, maybe get you guys come down and do like a 2 promoters talk in there. Basically, we wanted to create a mini version of Trees inside of a retail unit in London, because we've done lots of BSM pop-ups all around the UK and Germany, and we wanted to bring elements of that and kind of merge it. So it was a really cool idea. It just didn't quite land last year.
Okay, good. Why won't you stock Heather Gray t-shirts?
I mean, see my previous answer about him and his t-shirts, honestly.
Why do you source designs from Indonesia, and why do you like that designer so much?
Okay. Fuck you.
This is just Rob fucking you over.
My
question.
You can tell.
We did a design, one of the most popular Trees designs ever a few years ago. It had some skeletons on it. It looked really cool. People loved it. Rob hated it. So we brought that designer back last year. Rob hated it again. Everyone else loved it. And Rob just now likes to wind me up. We commissioned the designer to do some new designs for us for this year. I sent them to Rob and I was like, what do you think? And he simply said, I hate it.
Like, can we just bear in mind, this is a man that took one photograph and reproduced it 100 times to go on every fence panel. We're not taking abuse over design choices by fucking Rob Scality here.
Incredible. Is it true that Jem does all the work but gets none of the glory?
That is true.
Last 2 questions. Dogs or music?
Dogs. Sorry, music.
And final question is a serious one. Most underrated band you've ever signed?
We worked with a band called Me Rex, who's played Trees previously, I'm pretty sure. Me Rex are great. Sounds a bit like Frightened Rabbit, bit of Los Campesinos, Why, that kind of stuff. They've got a song called Sinkhole, which, if anyone hasn't listened, go and listen to it. I think that band should have been absolutely massive. I would also maybe say Other Half for this, just because Other Half are brilliant and just
they are great. They're
riffs
great.
and fun and easy to work with and lovely people, and just they do very well, but I just wish they were huge. So yeah, I'm really surprised he didn't ask a question about holidays. Rob has it in his head that I take more holidays than anybody else in the world, and I was convinced that was going to be one of them.
You like a working holiday, don't you?
I do like a working holiday, yeah. So
yeah, like I'm in New York, but it's work.
Yeah, exactly. It's perk of the job. Can I now actually say I didn't answer this question earlier? Funny stories from festivals, and I was waiting on one of them to decide whether I told it based on Rob's questions, and now I'm going to tell it. He didn't used to work at Arctangent, not officially. He worked at Trees, but Arctangent for many years. Rob was there on more of a jolly, and like on, say it's like, I don't know, trick or treating, or there's someone you can see them out in the street doing like cold calling, and you think, oh fuck, I'm really not up for this, and you turn off the lights and pretend you're not home.
People to hide from, you mean?
Yeah. Rob, we used to see him stumbling across the festival site at Arctangent, carrying a golf ball, which we'll go into in a minute, and we'd see him coming across, and all of us who knew Rob would be like, fuck, we're out, and we'd go and hide out the back, because he'd often be drunk enough that he couldn't figure it out anyway. Am I right in this? He used to carry a golf ball around, and if you put it in your drink, you had to down it. That was like his game.
Yeah. I believe so.
I'm really glad you now employ Rob and he doesn't come and just get drunk, because that was hard. That was maybe the hardest part of Arctangent.
So he'd come up to you when you're working and drop a golf ball, which has been in 17 other people's drinks and all over his dirty hands into your drink.
All these signs out saying no drinks on the merch table, and he immediately like smashes his beer down on there. The best thing you ever did was to bring him into the fold, so he no longer does that. Two other quick festival stories I do need to tell though. One I just remembered yesterday was we very, very rarely does anyone steal anything from the merch tent, but unfortunately a couple of times it's happened over the years. Arctangent, in one of the early years, we came in the morning, and the tent, there was like on the side of it, as you look to the right hand side, it was kind of open a bit, like somebody had crawled under, and you could see marks across the floor as they'd gone across in the mud. Over the table there was mud. There was a box of Maybe She Will t-shirts, all sort of strewn around, and it's like, oh, fuck, someone's come in and stolen some Maybe She Will t-shirts. And when we looked at it, they'd dropped their passport next to the box. And so it was like either that or it's an incredible stitch-up job. That was just like the dumbest thief I think I've ever seen.
And what before we move on to the next question, what happened? What was the outcome of it?
We spoke to, I can't remember who we went to now, maybe Sarah, somebody of authority, gave the passport in and said, I guess if you could track this guy down, up to you what you do here, chuck him out or whatever. Again, it could have been a prank from a friend, but never heard anything from it. I found John Helps from the band, and I said to him, I'm really sorry, but I think someone stole your t-shirts. And he was like, cool, I don't want to take them home anyway.
Very John answer. I love it.
He wasn't too fussed. My final story actually, James, involves you, and I don't know if you remember this one. 2000 Trees years ago, and I definitely won't name the band, but their merch guy, who wasn't in the band, he did so many drugs, he forgot how numbers work, and he came over to count out this band, and he'd obviously gone to one of our staff, didn't like what they'd told him, so it'd been sort of escalated, came to Dave, didn't like what Dave said, so it came to me, and we counted through it, and it's like, they've sold 7 t-shirts. And he goes, yeah, 7. I'm like, 7. That's what this says. It's 7. But it's like he couldn't remember what the number 7 was. And so he wanted to go higher again. And at that moment, I glanced out of the tent, and James, you were standing out there. I was like, all right, hold on. So I said, I'm going to bring the festival organizer over. So I brought James in, introduced him. The guy went through the numbers again gets to 7, again doesn't understand what 7 means. James looks at me, looks at him and goes, yeah, what it says in the paperwork is right. The guy says to me, I'm getting annoyed now. Like, I've spoken to various members of the staff. You told me you were going to bring the festival organizer over, and instead you bring this bouncer. And James, who's already like 8'5", grows another foot or two, leans over, puts his hand on the guy's shoulder and says, "Mate, I've been pretty fucking patient with you up till now, but if you don't take your merch and fuck off, I'm going to bounce you out of this festival." And he scurried so quickly.
Amazing.
James, James, we can't get you there. We can't
Mate,
get
you can get me there.
Yeah.
It's all front now. I wouldn't have actually followed through on that.
It's the one and only time I've seen you angry, but the moment he said bouncer, I was like, oh, we might have trouble here.
I do remember that now.
Don't disrespect the big man in his own patch, man.
No, he left, and that band haven't played again since.
Oh, you'll have to remind me on WhatsApp later what band that was.
I will.
Brilliant. Okay, well, let's get a shout out to ISO that we're going on the record. It's been an absolute pleasure having you, Kev. ISO merch, are there any crossover with them and any of your various links throughout the industry, Kev?
Not loads. I mean, I always listen to what you say about them each week, and it sounds great. We dealt with them a bit for Dimcura. They kindly stocked that record for us, and some of our other records, but yeah, I think it's really cool for all the reasons you talk about each week. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. I mean, Ali and his team have been from sort of at the start of Damnation. They've really built an empire, and it's an incredible business that they've got there. And this week, the spotlight seems to rest on Architects, who are a new store that they've set up for architects. You can go there, get your hoodies, they've got key rings, hats, all sorts of stuff for architects. New albums looks like it's coming. So do that. If you're an ISIS fan, James, Wavering Radiant and In the Absence of Truth repressed vinyls on Variants are going to be available soon, and they have all the previous stores that I've mentioned, be it Deftones, Radiohead, King Cradle of Filth, David Bowie. I was on the other day. I wonder if my brother will listen to this. I bought a couple of Sleep Token t-shirts for his birthday, and I got myself a nice Radiohead one. Again, fucking total of all 3 t-shirts by the time you've got the Pod 10 discount on. I think I got them for 50 quid, which is about you would get 1 t-shirt for at any a Sleep Token or a Radiohead show. Go there, authentic merch, officially licensed, $19.99 most of it. Use Pod 10 at the checkout, get yourself 10% off the order. Cheap, affordable, quality products. So, I mean, everything you know about the merch, Kev. I mean, when you listen to the podcast done, it's just no fucking cheap. It's not cheap. I mean, the way that ISO actually sell isn't possible for independents like ourselves and Art Tangent, because we just can't get the blanks that cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it's really cool, and merch has become so expensive in recent years, so it's nice to have somebody out there as an option.
Aye, absolutely. So get yourself along, explore that, James. Go and get yourself some ISIS vinyls. And talking of records, Kev, let's see this one out. What's your on the record choice for this week?
I'm going to go for a song called Will by Love Rarely, who are playing at Trees on the Wednesday this year. They've just finished a tour with the Calistal Boys, previously done some shows with Sweet Pill. Musically, it's kind of a cross between those two, La Dispute, bit of Loathe, Fall of Troy, various other stuff. We're releasing their debut album in just over a month's time. They're great. Really cool band from Leeds. Check them out if you're into any of those bands I just mentioned.
I mean, the reaction to Love Rarely and Knives, the both of sport bands on that Calistal Boys package, was unbelievable. I mean, people were saying, never heard of either of these bands. It absolutely blew me away, as did Calistal Boys, of course. But see, when you go to a show and you get the support bands is every bit as good as a headliner, it's a nice treat.
Yeah, I thought it was very cool. I went to the show at Leeds. The Brood now is my favourite venue, so I took the opportunity to go up there for that one, and really cool, absolutely packed right from the start. Everyone turned up to see the supports, really got into it. Just the whole tour was amazing. So yeah, shout out to our friend James Spence for putting that one together.
Brilliant. James?
Amazing. I'm excited about Love Rarely's album. I didn't realise that was on its way. I have chosen the band Adore, and the song Can We Talk. So this is a Big Scary Monsters band from Dublin. So they were picked, as I've talked about before, I do quite like it on the podcast when different people tell me about a band, and the booking agent told me about them, and then Kev sent me an email, which I looked up yesterday, and he describes it as post-punk with a faster, catchier edge. That was your email, Kev. They're playing the new stage on Thursday afternoon. Really great band. You should check them out.
Brilliant. And am I right in thinking, Kev, we were promised jetpacks? Are they from your stable?
Yes, we did the last couple of records.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, I had an odd introduction. I was responsible for a team covering like Tea in the Park or Connect Festival way back, maybe 2009, 2010. And one of the sort of feature ideas we came up with is you pick some of the bands for the unsigned tents that have got interesting names that you don't know anything about, and then go in and explain to the reader who they are and what they sound like. And we were promised jetpacks is one of the best fucking band names that's ever been done. I mean, that was straight. I was like, we need to go and check out these guys, and they are incredible. Like a punchy Scottish indie rock band. I love Scottish bands that they don't try to hide the accent either. They don't. There are loads of Scottish indie bands that want to sound American. You get a band like Frightened Rabbit or Biffy Clyro, Twin Atlantic. They just let their accent do the singing with them, and I think that's true of We Were Promised Jetpacks. The tune I'm going to pick is It's Thunder and It's Lightning, which I believe is from their debut album. It's if you like those type of bands, Frightened Rabbit, Twin Atlantic, Biffy Clyro, go and check them out. Actually, when I was playing them on Spotify, they led me to another Scottish band called There Will Be Fireworks, who I've also quite enjoyed. I've heard of them too. So, we were promised jetpacks ever done your events, James? They sound like they would have.
Yep, they played Trees more than once, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a fan. I really like that band.
It's been a while. Actually, Adam, I saw the singer. He lives in New York now with his wife, and I saw him a few weeks ago, and he's doing really well. The band are just taking a bit of a moment just to sort of enjoy real life. But it's funny you should mention his Scottish accent, because he's lived in New York a few years now. If anything, he's got more Scottish. He's really like doubled down on that, which is
he's doubled
cool.
down it.
Yeah,
not back down, double down.
Yeah.
Aye, good, brilliant. Kev, what a pleasure. James said you'd be the best guest ever. I believe that for the fans and the listeners themselves to decide. You've definitely been fucking entertaining for the best part of 2 hours or more by the looks of it. So absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. As I said, I will never listen back to this episode, but I'll listen to all the rest of them. And yeah, it's been really cool. And I think, just as I said earlier, everything you guys do on the podcast is awesome. So keep going. It's
Thanks, mate.
Yeah. Sorry, I've just this second got a text from your brother saying, feeling drained. What a way to finish it.
That's a great way to end.
Very fitting from Rob Scarlett. Brilliant.
Yeah.
James, I will see you next week. Kev, I will see you in hopefully a sunny farm in Gloucestershire.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks, Kev.